Welcome to the 29th episode of Vital Questions. As always, I'm your host, Che Guerrero with
La Co-Host.
La Co-Host. Today, listen, we're starting to record now, and you're already probably going to know the runtime. You're already going to know, oh, this is a long episode or a short episode because we have so much information.
So much.
We don't know how long it's going to take.
Yeah, so bear with us. Stick with us. We're going through this journey together. Yay.
Because we are going to break down the entire video. That's right, the entire video.
Well, yes.
To the most part.
But not every single point in the entire video because I didn't want to drive myself crazy.
Okay. We're going to get into a lot of the video that is the press conference that Trump called.
Presidential address.
The presidential address.
What was that? I don't even know what the hell to call President, State of the Nation.
That's what was so wild about it, because presidents don't call these kinds of things unless it's a emergency, we got Bin Laden, something like that. He called it to have grievances.
Right, exactly. Actually, we're jumping, but good. So just pulling up an Entertainment Weekly article about it. He actually did interrupt a lot of the major news, or not news, a lot of the major TV stations, and basically required them to air whatever this message was going to be, which a lot of people thought was going to be about Venezuela, given, to your point, the fact that presidents don't typically do this unless there's some kind of major announcement.
That's right. People thought that he was going to say, hey, we're going on a land war. We're going to invade Venezuela. And it was just, what is this nonsense that he's giving us?
Yeah. And on Venezuela, I learned my lesson, y'all. I know. You thought, oh, this is going to be about Venezuela because that's what she said last episode. And I lied. I mean, not intentionally, but I tried. And then what I realized is, oh, there's a lot. And trying to, figure out what to present to everyone about what's the most important thing. Luckily, Che helped me out to figure out, we're going to kind of narrow it down with the last couple of years in terms of the history, the interplay with what's currently happening over there, and how this administration may or may not, up to you to decide, be taking advantage of the situation that's happening over there. But that will be a later episode because, to Jay's point, that speech was a shit show.
Yeah.
That Trump did. So what we did find a little interesting about it also is that he intentionally left out a lot of information. For example, Venezuela. Everyone really thought that he was going to, no. Everyone really thought that he was going to bring up Venezuela because of the escalation that's happening, which we'll get into in a future episode, but not even a mention about it. What he also didn't conveniently mention is the recent shooting that happened last week, that happened this past Saturday in Rhode Island at Brown University, where 2 students were tragically killed, or the murder of an MIT professor in that professor's home in Brookline, Massachusetts this past Monday. And it was a very telling point to me, at least, that these tragedies happened and you didn't even acknowledge them.
Yeah.
Not even, hey, your stupid thoughts and prayers that you love to put out. And this just happened. This just this week and late last week. It's not like this was months ago, because a lot has happened this year that you could also address, and a lot of shootings have happened this year that you can also address. But of course, we're going to leave that out. So just looking at this NBC News article entitled Brown University Shooting, Suspect Found Dead, is also accused of killing MIT professor, dated December 19, 2025. So the 2 students from Brown that were killed were Ella Cook and Mohammed Aziz Umurzakov. Apologies for butchering the last name.
Umurzakov, yeah.
Yeah. And the MIT professor who was also tragically killed was Nuno F. Gomez Loureiro. He was 47 years old and a nuclear science and engineering professor from Portugal. Now, the shooter allegedly was a Portuguese national. Or actually, not allegedly. He was a Portuguese national. The alleged shooter, though, because that's the question mark.
That's the question.
He was a Portuguese national who attended Brown in the early 2000s as a PhD student. He was found dead, not yesterday, day before yesterday, in a New Hampshire storage unit. So, of course, we can't have a tragedy without the administration somehow taking advantage of it, because shortly thereafter, there was news that Trump is suspending the green card lottery that the shooter was apparently able to get a green card through. So looking at an NPR article entitled Trump Suspends U.S. Green Card Lottery After Brown University and MIT Shootings, dated December 19, 2025. So of course, Trump is using this as an excuse to punish more immigrants and has suspended the US green card lottery since that is what, again, the bronze shooter you previously won and had status in the US with. So this is just another example of taking a terrible tragedy
Mhm.
that, yes, someone committed horrendous crimes that should be or should have been before I guess he
Yeah.
killed himself, it seems like, held accountable for, but that does not equate to every immigrant is liable of potentially doing this. Again, if that were the case, then is every white guy going to be a mass shooter? Because most of the mass shooters tend to be, right? So, like, let's it.
I mean, that's usually the thing, you know, that's what has been so unbelievable about this year is that he's always taking these isolated incidents of someone doing wrong who should be, hey, punished, I mean, criminal justice system, go, find him guilty, send him to jail kind of thing. Yes, let's go through that process.
Mhm.
But this guy, he's taking every single opportunity of somebody doing something to automatically take away entire community status and ability to bring their families here. He's just done so much, such a little amount of time by weaponizing these stories.
Mhm, and he takes any little one incident, compared to the many other incidences that are happening with a certain lighter complexion on a regular basis that we don't highlight, but of course, the second there's any kind of international person that's doing anything remotely, problematic,
Hmm.
it becomes main stage and an excuse to do a lot of other damage.
Yeah.
So, just wanted to highlight that these were major things that happened recently that in a normal time, and a normal president would have addressed. But of course, we're not under normal times, unfortunately. So talking about not being under normal times, what is interesting is that again, this is I hesitated to bring this up because I admit that it's a conspiracy theory that some people are talking about online. So I won't put too much on this,
Yes.
but news came out shortly afterwards of Truth Social apparently having a merger with a nuclear fusion company. So, looking at a Guardian article entitled "Why is Truth Social owner Trump Media merging with fusion energy firm?" dated December 19th, 2025. So, I literally added this morning because I heard about the news late last night.
Mhm.
And what let's just read off the article. So, from this article, just reading off the quote, Tay Technologies, an energy company founded in 1998, will join with Trump Media via a $6 billion merger that promises will propel it to build, quote, the world's first utility scale fusion power plant next year. The move signals that the president and his family continue to look for profit seeking ventures outside of Truth Social, which remains tiny compared to its rivals. Trump will be on the new company's board of directors as well. So my first question when I saw this is like, first of all, why is a media company merging with a fusion energy company?
Mhm.
And the what everyone's kind of trying to tie this to is I'm not sure if people realize, but again, the MIT professor that was murdered in his home was a nuclear science and engineering professor. 2 days after that murder, the announcement comes out that or the owner of True Social, which is Trump Media and Technology Group, will be merging with a nuclear fusion company. So people are trying to make the tie with the nuclear aspect of it, basically. Oh, you guys are taking out the competition. And there's this whole conspiracy theory of like whether or not the alleged shooter who is now dead was a real shooter. There's a lot going on online about that. So,
Yeah, this is one of the stories that I have posted, talked about who the alleged shooter is, the man from Portugal, and the comments are weird. People don't believe the reporting that I'm giving them because they feel like this story is very off.
mhm.
And it isn't until you told me this that kind of makes me realize why. And look, I'm not trying to jump into a big conspiracy theory. I don't want to take away from the memory of the professor who passed away at MIT, and start, telling a story that's not there. But man, it is really weird that an MIT professor who worked in nuclear fusion was killed. And then Trump is the first president to have a social media platform that's merging with a nuclear fusion company for what?
Yeah, I
Why? You're gonna hyper drive, we're gonna take it 88 miles per hour and go back in time with our tweets.
Yeah, so I encourage everyone to read this article because it does give more details on it. I'm just trying to kind of fly by it given that
Sorry, that was
oh,
a
no, no, no.
lot.
No, 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 not even that, but I just wanted to flag that apparently the incoming CEO of the new company, which is currently the CEO of the Trump media company, said that, "Oh, we've done great things in social media, and we've established ourselves and all this stuff. So now we're looking through to a different venture, and now we're gonna go into this new industry." And it's just like, that's not even relevant to media.
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
why is a media company going into, like, I'm trying to figure out the synergy or the logic behind it, because what are we talking about? Again, I have an M&A background from when I started my career.
Yeah.
So usually for M&A deals, there's some kind of business reason. Sometimes you're interested in acquiring like the CEO or an employee of the company because they're an engineer or know something really different or a trade secret, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
But this is literally not even apples and oranges. This is apples and like nuclear fusion. Like, it's just like, what?
I was thinking, like, what's a great analogy? It's like a farmer going, "I'm getting to nuclear fusion." What?
What? Yeah,
Why
like,
is anybody getting into nuclear fusion?
so it's funny. I tried to look into nuclear fusion to try to like act like I understood what I was. I'm not even gonna hit that with something about the sun. And listen,
Lost me.
science
What's a
not
sun? No, I'm just kidding.
science is not my forte. So it's about like I'm not even gonna try. No, I'm not gonna try it. I'm not gonna
Okay,
do it.
no.
But
I
anyways,
don't want to break you like that.
but yes, it was again really weird, and just the timing of it, people find suspicious. I agree with you that we want to be careful, and that's why I highlight that's a conspiracy theory, not presenting it as necessarily news, but something to keep an eye out because it
Yeah.
is a little weird, right?
And
But
I
we
will
want to,
say,
yeah, but we want to be conscious of
oh,
not what's it called, of not kind of running with conspiracy theories and losing sight of reality, because I think that's a major issue right now.
all right.
So back to what we came for.
Mm.
So on Wednesday, December 17th, today we're filming on Saturday, December 20th, 2025 for context. So on Wednesday, December 17th, Trump gave his year-end address to the nation, and it was as much of a shit show as this year has been. We originally wanted to make this just one of a couple of news stories we would cover today, but we cannot get over the blatant lies and misleading statements that he made in his speech. So we're going to dive into some of the wild things that stood out to us and do a little fact checking on some points. So let's get into the video. Hold on. Sorry.
Good evening, America.
Sorry, let me pause this. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to do this kind of section by section. Again, I would have loved to, every single word that this man said had some kind of something to it, right? But we don't have that kind of time. So fast forwarding it to 20 seconds in. And there. And we're going to play from here.
Which caused prices to be higher than ever before, making life unaffordable for millions and millions of Americans. This happened during a Democrat administration, and it's when we first began hearing the word affordability.
Okay, so that's not true, obviously. I don't even need to look that up to tell it. Like, we didn't create the word affordability, but whatever. So in that section, he's talking about how, as you heard, right, things were his big old claim, right, that Biden made everything expensive and I'm going to change it and it's going to be fine and blah, blah, blah. One of the big things, obviously, was grocery prices. And that's, I know, was a big sticking point in this recent election. Eggs was like a mess or whatever, right? Everyone was talking about, hey, I can't afford eggs. So let's start there. So adding to this article, ABC News, entitled "Fact Checking Trump's Presidential Address Claim He's Brought Gas Grocery Prices Down," dated December 18, 2025. So just looking through what ABC News provided and summarizing here. So egg prices are down from an all-time high average of $6.23 in March to $3.49 as of September. But that's not 82% down, as he actually says later on in the speech. But as ABC flags, egg prices were affected by the bird flu. That's what was causing chickens to die, require them to be killed, and thereby decreasing supply of eggs. It had nothing to do with like Biden necessarily, or that the administration was just charging more for eggs arbitrarily. No, it was the bird flu. It was supply and demand. That's literally Econ 101. If you are interested in learning more and a refresher on why eggs were so expensive, look at this Reuters article, right? Feel free to read through it, entitled "Explainer How Bird Flu Has Sent U.S. Egg Prices Skyrocketing." This is dated back February 21, 2025. So again, a very clear, obvious point that the egg prices weren't due to Biden necessarily. It's just there was a bird flu that was decimating chickens left and right. Going back to the ABC News article, They also noted that meat prices have actually gone up from 8.5% in the past year to a record high of 14.7%, which of course Trump didn't even mention.
Oh,
Or
so you canceling out eggs.
right. Or the fact that coffee has also gone up by up by 18.9%, in part due to Trump's tariffs on places like Brazil, where we import a lot of coffee from. Again, not mentioned, right? So sure, egg prices might be down. You don't mention the context of, hey, it was up in the first place because of bird flu. Hey, we actually just didn't have enough chickens. All of that. No, it was Democrats. But you don't flag all the other grocery things that are kind of,
No, of course not. This
being
is why
affected.
this entire thing needed to be broken down, because his side is only used to hearing the cherry-picked, like,
Yeah.
good news, but
Right.
not being told why it's good news.
Right. Context matters always, actually.
Always.
So let's look at gas prices. So gas prices are only down 0.5% from last year. As ABC also flags, gas prices did reach an all-time high in June 2022. Yes, during, Biden. But if you do some research, you can easily find why that happened. So looking at an article by the US Energy Information Administration dated January 5th, 2023, entitled US retail gasoline prices rose in the summer but ended 2022 lower than the start of 2022. Continuing on the article, if we scroll down, we find the following quote, rising crude oil prices and increased gasoline demand early in 2022 contributed to rising US retail gasoline prices in the summer. But gasoline prices ended 2022 lower than at the start of the year because of more refinery production and less demand. Also, it continues, Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in late February contributed to rising crude oil prices and substantial uncertainty in markets for crude oil, natural gas, and petroleum products like gasoline. And right underneath that, it continues, increased gasoline prices in the first half of the year were driven by low gasoline inventories, which declined sharply in March and April and remained below average through November. People have to remember that during this time, it was right around the pandemic and the world was still trying to bounce back after supply chain issues. We all experienced it. We all remember that, right? It was very hard to get certain things because people weren't able to be at work. So when the world started to open back up again, people wanted to go out, so more demand for gas.
Yeah.
I.e., low gas supply, high gas demand equals high gas prices.
Yeah.
Again, not specific to Democrats.
Let me just say this too, that, I might be, counting my chickens before they hatch. Get it? Because of the egg prices anyways. But one thing that Donald Trump is good at is taking credit for other people's work.
Yeah.
The man, Donald Trump, destroyed the economy during the pandemic. Okay. He allowed during his term for Russia to get more power. Okay. Allowed it to take, get the kind of support going to invade Ukraine. So when Trump left, Russia was ready to invade Ukraine. The pandemic was roaring. The man left. J6, all these issues. Biden was not a great president in my eyes, in the sense that I want him to do more for progressive and things like that. But the dude did his due diligence to try and get, and I'm going to say, white America back to its place. Gave y'all cheaper eggs, lower your gas prices.
Sorry, when you said, because you just mentioned Biden and Trump, so when you say the dude did his diligence, who you're talking? What dude?
Biden.
Okay.
Biden, during the time that what Trump left him, did his due diligence to try and get, like, and I'm saying, white America back to their status quo, cheaper gas, cut a lot of, student loans, started expanding ACA, all this stuff that they wanted. And had Biden not come and done that, it would have been even worse economically and everything. We actually had the best bounce back in the world after the pandemic, mostly led by undocumented labor. Look it up. But, and that's another thing, undocumented labor helped a lot of this cushion, helped the food stay low, helped, jobs and in so many ways, food delivery, all these things that they did to help the bounce back. And this is why Trump is not doing anything for you, because he never has fucking plans. You always have to get a Democrat to come and sweep everything up the best they could.
Yeah.
Economically, that's actually how it works. But
Yeah.
anyways, I digress. Excuse me.
So that's just the first section. So moving on to
Our border was open, and because
shut up.
Shut up.
Okay, so we're continuing right there.
Mhm.
So at 35 seconds, cool. So at 35 seconds to a minute.
Affordability. Our border was open, and because of this, our country was being invaded by an army of 25 million people, many who came from prisons and jails, mental institutions, and insane asylums. They were drug dealers, gang members, and even 11,888 murderers, more than 50% of whom killed more than one person.
Okay, but also hilarious. That's that. More than 50% killed more than one person.
Isn't it crazy when he reads from his family's own autobiography? We came here as criminals, as asylum people,
As asylum people.
escaping the fact that we were drafted.
Yeah, so let's dig into the actual facts. Looking at an NBC News article entitled Fact Checking Trump, Economy, Wages, Immigration, and More, dated December 18, 2025. So in this article, NBC goes on to literally look at the numbers, right? So just summarizing the excerpt we're looking at here. So 7.4 million undocumented immigrants crossed the border outside of legal checkpoints during the Biden administration, according to data from literally CBP. If you add in the people that crossed at legal points of entry without documentation, that is only 10.2 million. And 800,000 immigrants entered the country through legal programs set up under Biden, such as protected status programs for residents of Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. And if most of so like regardless the numbers, the 25 million, no one knows where the hell he's getting that number from. It's just meant to be a scary giant number to terrify everyone, especially when you call it an invasion, rather than most people literally running for their lives or just trying to get some semblance of normalcy. Yeah, it changes the picture drastically, right?
Do you know why he keeps using a much higher number than what the statistics are?
To scare people?
In part, yes, it's to scare people, but the other part is so he can deport more people. So he
Right, because you have to, yeah, because
you
it's
have to
like, oh, I have
create.
to, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, these are undocumented people. He makes the number bigger. Remember, now he's going after US citizens. Now he's going after basically US citizens was what the final idea was.
Right.
Final solution is almost what I said. That's a Nazi thing. But essentially, he wanted to inflate the numbers so when he goes after more people, he could just say, no, these are part of the 25 million.
Yeah, remember I told you it was so many? Yeah.
That's why the number kept changing, because he knew he was not going to go after just quote unquote criminals. He was going to go after everyone. So he made that number his goal. And 25 million is just next year is going to be actually 50 million came under Biden. 100 million. All the brown people came under Biden. Every single brown person you ever saw was born and grew up during Biden. It was a very hyper Benjamin Button situation.
Yeah, I can't wait for him to come out with that theory.
Yeah, everybody.
And people are going to be like, oh my God, yeah, that makes total sense.
Total sense.
So on the whole, immigrants being criminals because they're not, just let's take a step back. Think about this logically, right? If most of the immigrants that come to the US are supposedly criminals, then presumably most of the people that ICE is kidnapping should be criminals then, right? Just simple logistics, right? If you actually supposedly know who these criminals are, you're getting that number. So clearly you have some kind of demarcation of who's a criminal, who's not. You have records of criminal charges. You have records of convictions, all that stuff.
La Co-Host, I feel like this is a misdirect.
You don't say. So looking at another NBC News article entitled, Despite Promise to Remove Worst of the Worst, ICE has arrested only 6% of known immigrant murderers. This is back in June 25, 2025. So NBC reported, I'm just summarizing here, NBC reported that although ICE told Congress that over 13,000 immigrants known to have committed murders remained at large, only 752 of them have been arrested. If they were actually targeting criminals, you would think that these would be the first on their list. What we haven't gotten to again, we've seen throughout this year how many troops, ICE agents, they're just recruiting everyone, and it's so many different people. And if you have record of supposedly 13,000 murderers, this is what you said, and it came to June and you guys only had a couple hundred, real interesting.
Let me put a conspiracy theory out there that does not feel like a conspiracy theory. They are purposely letting the worst of the worst be on the streets, people that they know are possibly plotting or wanting to commit crimes, just so they can weaponize the fact that this happened. I don't doubt that they're letting crime happen so then they can say
they can continue.
They can continue. Because I'm not hearing about so many white boys getting arrested. White people commit crimes higher levels, if not the same, but I'm gonna put a little higher there. Okay. White people are out there committing crimes every day, and they're not on the news the way this. Anytime an immigrant does something somewhere, it is put up front and center. And I won't doubt the fact that they're not stopping these crimes to let it happen, to continue weaponize it, to continue martial law, all this crap.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. Again, that's speculation and conspiracy theory, quote unquote, technically, but I wouldn't be surprised.
I wouldn't be surprised.
It makes sense strategically, unfortunately. So yeah, I mean, I guess only time will tell. So if you're like, oh, La Co-Host, that was from June, maybe it got better, and maybe they, saw that and were like, oh no, we can be better. No, they can't. So looking at another
misdirect by La Co-Host
NBC News article entitled U.S. Deportation Tracker, Counting Arrests, Deportations, which was last updated November 17, 2025. So per data as of September 25, 2025, right? So now we went from June to September. For migrants in ICE detention, looking at some statistics, they had 28.7% had criminal records, or criminal convictions. 25.4% had pending criminal charges. Meanwhile, 46.9% are listed as, quote, other immigration violator, meaning that they had no criminal convictions or charges. So, meaning that most of what happened to we're going after criminals. Friendly reminder again, being in the US without documentation is not illegal. It is a civil violation. It is jaywalking. That's what a civil violation is. Jaywalking. Meaning a civil violation does not mean incarceration, because just because they're calling it detention does not mean that it's functioning as a prison, because that's what literally it's doing. It's functioning as a prison.
It's a prison.
People aren't being held at a Holiday Inn with their own room and just chilling and just waiting to see, how the paperwork goes through. No, they're being put in prisons.
I go as far now as saying concentration camps,
right?
For the fact that people are in there for 109 days who have never committed a crime, who have been working in the U.S. for 14 years, who are trying to seek asylum,
right?
And they're being put in holes for an average now of 109 days, which is double the average for last year. Double.
Ridiculous.
Tortured.
So keep in mind that, again, this is why one of my favorite phrases is words matter. Because when you hear detention center, it's intentional, right? Like they're calling it a detention center because back in the day, maybe it was just a detention center, but now they're functioning as prisons. So just continuing with the same article from NBC, NBC also reported that, quote, ICE told Congress last year that as of July, it had identified 435,000 unauthorized immigrants with criminal convictions in the United States who were not in custody. Of those non-citizens, 13,099 were convicted of murder, 15,811 were convicted of sexual assault. As of the end of May 2025, ICE had arrested, again, 752 non-citizens convicted of murder and 1,693 convicted of sexual assault. Again, going back to, if you are saying to Congress, hey, we have record of this, meaning you at a bare minimum have name, birthday, last known address, port of entry, where have they worked, any affiliate names, like, what do you actually have based to be able to say this, right? So, and presumably, if with all the intelligence of the United States, with all your different agencies, with all your different AI contracts that you guys came out with to create all these different databases, you mean to tell me you still haven't been able to find most of these people that supposedly are out there, but yet you guys are scooping up there's quotas left and right. There's troops on the ground. There's however many bunch of ICE agents left and right. But y'all are coming back with these metrics, and most of the people incarcerated in your detention centers do not have any criminal convictions, only have a civil infraction over paperwork. That's what we're talking about, paperwork. Remember that. When you see the kid crying because their parent just got taken away, when you see the pregnant woman getting fucking dragged on the floor by an ICE agent, remember that. We're talking about fucking paperwork. But yeah. So.
Oh.
Sorry, it's also been like a rough week.
It's La Co-Host. Listen, we need to take a moment of realness right now, a moment of breath. Everybody breathe in. Everybody at home right now, because this is heavy. We can't act like it's not. We can't act like this isn't affecting us. Yeah. I wake up crying.
Yeah,
did it today. Hey, look at me being honest. A man talking about his feelings. Look out for my new podcast called Feelings. What are they? But anyways, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no,
it is. And. Let me give you a moment here. While you were saying all this, talking about all this, You know what's weird? I kept thinking about the film, They Cloned Tyrone. If you haven't seen the film, spoiler, I'm gonna give a little minute to get the co-host here a second. But the clone Tyrone is essentially, the government has been cloning certain individuals in the community that quote unquote create chaos. The drug dealer, the pimp, and all this stuff. These are the people specifically who are being cloned and are being put in corners to disrupt the community. So the government are creating these people so they can control the community, because once you have these archetypes, then it's easy to create narratives for the media, like, oh, look at this criminal, look at this pimp, da da da, whatever. And it just, while you were talking about that, it just kind of reminded me of the fact that, people don't exist in a vacuum. And I'm not trying to make excuses for anybody's actions. People should be held accountable, like I said. But a lot of the times, people are raised in certain manners due to economic systems. They're not able, most people live and die within the same economic bracket. So you trap people in a perpetual system of violence and drugs and things like that. Not everyone, people do have the ability to get out. I'm just speaking in, you create these things.
Yeah.
And the US government right now has a big role to play in the creation of a lot of the quote unquote criminals we have in the streets, right? Lack of access to healthcare, home, things like that.
Right.
And then it's letting them be in the streets. This government knows who the quote unquote bad guys are, but they're allowing them to be in the streets. So when then they commit a crime, they could say, look at that entire community. But excuse me, you're not doing your job to actually remove these people. No, because they want to create these people and even have those people terrorize us, even pay them sometimes to terrorize us. Hey, listen, anybody will sell out their grandma for $2. Okay. So this is such a sick situation that I feel like they're really not going after criminals to continue to be able to point at criminals and say, we have to go after everyone.
Yeah. And I mean,
They clone Tyrone, baby.
And it's interesting because you mentioned the whole white criminals versus everybody else. And I do have a theory on that, which again is speculation, but I have a feeling that the part of the reason, I don't know if I actually heard this one time, but that part of the reason why white communities aren't policed in the same way is that police are aware of the resources most people in that community tend to have, meaning they have money and the ability to hire good lawyers.
Yes.
Versus, unfortunately, minority communities that grew up with not the same kind of benefits in life and not the same social structures that kind of help them either push through or not hold them back, which is, we won't even go into that whole rabbit hole, but that's in and of itself. There's a lot of socioeconomic structures that kind of inhibit people from progressing, and they're aware of that, right? They're like, oh, well, odds are if I go to a lower income neighborhood, you guys are lower income. You can't afford a good lawyer.
No.
You're going to get a public defender. And shout out to all the public defenders that are doing God's work out there. Doing God's work. And it's not a knock to y'all. It's just that you guys are so overworked and you have such a big caseload that you couldn't possibly. I mean, I'm sure there are some that somehow are still able to finagle it and are able to do incredible work throughout their caseload. But on the most part, a lot of people crack on public defenders. No, they just are underfunded and don't have enough resources and get every single caseload under the sun of people that can't afford proper representation. Proper meaning people that aren't overloaded in that way. So
very, very valid point. And I'll, and just on one more thing, and then we'll move on because I know we have a lot. And this is something that I've noticed more on the Trump than anyone else. I thought it was only police that would do that, but it also kind of works with judges. Do you know what I mean? I find it so heartbreaking that a judge could sentence a Black youth to 3 years in prison if he allegedly stole the book bag. But a judge keeps doing all these injunctions to Trump. Hey, you're not following the rules. You're not giving due process. Injunction, blah, 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 whatever they are. And then Trump's just sitting in the White House going, that's funny. And it's just like your power is only limited to hurt vulnerable people. And as judges and as lawyers, when things come out on the other side, you really need to buckle down and be like, we need to be able to go after rich and powerful.
Well, that's the thing. I will, just to kind of advocate for the legal community. I know there's a lot of judges out there and a lot of lawyers out there that are trying to hold people accountable.
And I respect that wholeheartedly.
I think the problem is that when, again, I've mentioned this before, when I saw the writing on the wall of, okay, completely Republican control on all three branches of government. Cool. Okay, conservative majority of the Supreme Court. Cool. Okay, a wannabe dictator coming into the presidency. Okay, cool. This has been, the writing was on the wall for a while. It's just that people weren't paying attention. And the problem is that when you have judges and lawyers who are actually trying to do their job properly, who believed in the oath that all the lawyers took, that again, to uphold the Constitution and uphold these laws. But when you have the government structure what it is now, where it's all bending the knee to a wannabe dictator, it's kind of impossible almost to do your job.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
I just hope that y'all rebuild the legal community, rebuild strong specifically after this.
Yeah, I mean, here's hoping, but we will see. So just tying this up before I got sad at the reality of everything. So we've gone through, right, 2 different time frames this past year of, okay, well, they've clearly not been going after criminals, and okay, well, maybe recently they did, right? So of course not. Looking at a study from the Cato Institute, they did a more recent study on detainees and found that not much has changed. So this is an article by the Cato Institute entitled 5% of people detained by ICE have violent convictions, 73% no convictions. And this is dated November 24, 2025. So just looking at the highlighted text here, of the people booked into ICE custody between October 1st of 2025 and November 15th of 2025, meaning a month and change, and a recent month and change, nearly 3 in 4 had no criminal conviction. Nearly half had no criminal conviction nor even any pending criminal charges. Only 8% had a violent or property criminal conviction. Only 5% had a violent criminal conviction. And a majority of the criminal convicts had vice, immigration, or traffic convictions. So this is just a good breakdown to give you the perspective of this. They're not doing what they're saying they're doing. And we've been screaming it to the top of our lungs all year. We've been talking about moving the goalpost, right? Literally what it sounds like, what it means when you think, hey, this is the target and this is what they're going to be doing. Every 2 seconds they keep, oh no, now we're going after this. And oh no, that stat was just, that's fake news. Or, oh no, they have always hated Trump, so that's not true. Like, I don't know how much more people need to see to confirm that this is not what this administration is doing. They're not going primarily after criminals. I don't know if we need to pull up the remigration quote and explain what remigration is, that the administration recently put up again on their social media, that is an ethnic cleansing concept.
Yeah.
They're not hiding it. So maybe last year when you had forgotten what his first administration kind of was, you could still lie to yourself and be like, oh no, it's fine that I'm a Trump supporter. Everyone's just making stuff up. They're just being the snowflake liberal people that they always are. Why do you think most snowflake, like not most, but why do you think a lot of the population of snowflake liberals are educated? Like this is what are we talking about? Like, I don't understand how people are so intentionally blind to stuff, but
we live in an era of anti-intellectualism, and the fact that people can literally spew out Trump's talking points front and back, but they can't tell you the actual truth.
Exactly.
It's chaotic. It's scary.
Yeah. So if you need further proof that this is not what they're doing, and that undocumented immigrants commit crimes at significantly lower rates than the rest of the population, you just have to take a look at the study from the DOJ back in September 2024 that found that undocumented immigrants in Texas, for example, committed crimes at less than half the rate of native-born U.S. citizens. And they focus on Texas because obviously that's by the border. You can also look at this NPR article entitled "Immigrants Are Less Likely to Commit Crimes Than U.S.-Born Americans. Studies Find." This is dated March 8th, 2024. Or just look into the many other evidence that exists that shows that immigrants aren't all criminals. They're not committing crimes at significantly higher rate than U.S.-born people. That's literally not true at all. And yeah, people keep listening to these sound bites by Cheeto and assume that he's telling the truth to them, even though he hasn't been, but whatever.
Hey, you know who a lot of people in the Epstein file are?
Who?
U.S.-born citizens.
Oh,
I'm just saying.
Oh, right.
I'm just saying.
Well, that's the other thing from the, from the team talking about, oh yeah, we're open and honest, when you have all these redacted pages. Like that's not even relevant to today's episode, but y'all need to, if you haven't already seen all the blacked out pages, you might want to go and check and get the confirmation that your administration isn't being honest with you and is protecting pedophiles.
Yeah, go watch.
Because it's not protecting the victims, right?
It's not.
You can black out the victims' faces for sure. You should. They are. Okay, what about everyone else? Everyone else. Just What are we talking about?
Did you hear about that reporter that put out an op-ed saying, "Oh, there's nothing in the Epstein list" a few months back? I think it was for the New York Times or whatever.
Of course it was.
And then turns out, homie's on the Epstein list.
Oh my God, hilarious.
So
Is
now,
he really?
yes.
Damn.
So now it's that journalistic integrity of, wait a minute, you were on the Epstein list and you were writing articles about the fact that there's nothing to see in the Epstein list.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not coming up when you search it?
No, I literally just put reporter on Epstein list and it's not coming up.
Put New York. Why don't you put, and maybe, let's see.
New York Times.
Because that's really weird. That's really weird.
Well, it's not. Epstein files include Oh, I did see that 1986 child porn complaint that FBI ignored. Yeah, I did see that this morning.
We're losing a little bit of the plot here, but
okay,
it's no, not on this, but it's because, wow, that's crazy that it's not being reported. When I post this clip, I'm gonna put like with some of the stuff underneath because there was a reporter. This was reported by a lot of people online, but the major publications are not picking up on the fact that a journalist wrote a whole op-ed about saying that there's something on the Epstein list, and he's on the Epstein list. The journalism credibility right there shot. That's why you should follow at Che Guerrero ENG, because one thing you can definitely agree on is that Che Guerrero La Co-Host are not on the Epstein list. And you can trust us on that.
Definitely not.
And you can trust our journalistic integrity on all of it, because we ain't in this.
Exactly.
So follow us.
So back to the shitstorm. For context, we're just 1 minute in, y'all. Into the speech.
The Biden administration.
So we're going fast forward to 1 minute and 9 seconds. 1 minute 9 seconds. Oop. Okay, perfect. And this is when he, like, everything he had said, I mean, as we've seen, is not actually true, and it's misleading and all that. This was the first point that I was like, oh, he's just saying stuff.
Playing in women's sports, transgender for everybody.
What does that mean? You get a transgender and you get a transgender and you get transgender for everybody? Like, what is
you get to be transgender?
I got no articles for that, y'all. I just thought it was ridiculous and like just needed to point out that he's not even coherent. It hasn't been for a while. So
he stopped the season finale of Survivor to tell that he stopped people from getting everyone transgendered.
Everyone gets transgender. Jesus Christ.
The president, everybody.
Right, exactly. So let's continue. We are at, well, it's supposed to start at 1 minute 44 seconds to 1:52.
Thing like it, and I think most would agree. I was elected in a landslide, winning the popular vote and all 7 swing states and everything else, with a mandate to take on a sick and corrupt system.
Okay. So that's the next one, right? It's one of his favorite sound bites to be like, I won by a landslide. We did it. We're amazing. We did the thing. So let's look at actual facts. This is one of the points that we've talked about before in a past episode, but looking at CNN politics, CNN has a summary of the 2024 presidential election. So this is literally the numbers, right? So technically, Trump won by 49.8% of the popular vote, or 77,302,580 votes, compared to Kamala's 48.3% of the popular vote, or 75,017,613 votes. So it's by no means a landslide. Landslide as a concept is like, oh, we crushed it. We got like, they got 5%. We got everything else, right? Like that's...
Reagan had a landslide.
Right. Like this is not by any means a landslide, right? And when you also look at U.S. Census data, right, looking at the U.S. Census Bureau, the immediate press release back then was 2024 presidential election voting and registration tables now available, right? So you can look that up. And if you look at this, it actually turns out that only 65.3% of people registered to vote actually voted in the 2024 presidential election, meaning that it wasn't actually a majority of the U.S. because that voted for him, because the majority, most people that, a lot of people that were registered to vote didn't even vote.
Yeah.
So this is also another
much lower turnout than when Biden versus Trump.
Right. And this is another example of why it's so important to vote, because people take for granted how things can be swayed. Just because you're in a blue state or a red state doesn't mean that your vote doesn't matter. Especially as we've seen this year with gerrymandered maps and all that stuff. At this point, everything matters. So one can only know what would have happened if the rest of the 34.7% of the population that was registered to vote actually came out. So again, he didn't win by a landslide. Yes, he technically won, but it wasn't by... it's not like everyone is a Trumper, and I think that that's what the image that he's trying to get across. That because we won by a landslide, and we're so good about like, I think that's the ideology that he keeps. That's why him and his team keep being like, we won by a landslide. No, you didn't. You just didn't.
And remember, this is the first time that a Republican has won the popular vote and the electoral college. He was a loser last time that just got the right amount of states.
Right.
He didn't get the popular vote.
Exactly.
Hillary did.
Yeah. So let's move on to the next soundbite.
Action to stop the invasion of our southern border. For the past 7 months, 0 illegal aliens have been allowed into our country, a feat which everyone said was absolutely impossible. Do you remember when?
Okay. So the next lie or concept that makes no sense is that there was 0 undocumented people that crossed the border. So let's look at whether or not that's true. Looking at, let's go next slide. Looking at the CBP's own data. So it's clear that attempted border crossings are down significantly, but clearly people are still trying to get through, right? Because they're having encounters or finding people, right? But the low number doesn't mean that there hasn't been anyone that has not been able to get through, right? So just taking a step back, right? Like, how do you know the lack of, right? Like, to claim that you've caught everyone, that's essentially what he's saying. We caught everybody. We got everyone who tried. How could you possibly quantify that, right? Like, how could you possibly quantify the lack of and be able to say for certain in a formal address to the nation that there's been nobody that's crossed? And yes, like, while people may be terrified to try to cross the border, we're also forgetting that, again, a lot of people are just trying to cross to have a semblance of a normal life or to escape atrocious circumstances that a lot of times the U.S. had something to do with.
He also doesn't understand that people are now more than ever afraid to present themselves to Border Patrol or any kind of. Remember, at a time when a migrant was crossing the border and they got into any kind of danger, like no water, or they could actually. The point was to find a Border Patrol agent, give yourself up to them. They would bring you in, help you, then see if you could seek asylum and stuff like that.
Right.
They're afraid of the encounters of Border Patrol. So you're having no encounters because people are now look, I'm saying, yes, there's people.
You're having less encounters.
Less encounters, sure. There is a lot of stories of countries in Latin America that have actually had to start changing their migration patterns because they were so used to people going north. Now they're used to people going south.
Right.
So things have changed.
Yeah, no, for sure. And they have changed.
And
but
fear is another one where they don't want to present themselves.
Exactly.
And you're playing this all wrong. You want people to feel safe enough to present themselves. You want people to feel safe enough to come out of the shadows and try and seek asylum. You want to have people on a registry if they know they can trust you to use that properly.
Exactly. And for people who are like listening in and be like, no, we don't want that. We don't want people coming here. We don't. Okay, so when the pandemic was happening, did you want to leave the US? Did you want to go somewhere that didn't have a whole pandemic, that didn't have COVID? Yeah, that's a similar concept. That would have been you trying to seek asylum or safety elsewhere, just like all these people, right? Remember, that was just a couple years ago, remember? Okay, so it's not that hard to understand why people may be trying to leave their circumstances. And again, a pandemic compared to, I don't know, all-out civil war or a complete coup of your government that you no longer have access to anything.
Or complete economic collapse.
Exactly. Those are the circumstances that a lot of these people are kind of managing. So just keep that in mind. Right. So how can you say that you have had 0 undocumented people crossing the border? That's impossible to really quantify, right? So what DHS has confirmed now is that as of October of this year, they have released 0 unauthorized immigrants into the U.S. for the previous 6 months. So just looking at the the press release here, entitled DHS delivers historic start to border crossings for fiscal year 2026. This is dated November of this year. And hilariously, in the highlighted text at the bottom, it says, every individual apprehended was processed according to law, a milestone unmatched in modern border history.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm a guess survey
pretty
says
catty for a official government post.
That, first of all, I think that was a lie. The odds are, obviously, you haven't even given due process to people on the street, so much less a migrant who no one is overseeing your actions. But sure. And yeah, the cattiness, this whole administration is just catty and petty, and they're children.
Yeah.
They're all children.
Yeah.
Like the way they speak, there's absolutely no sense of decorum. There's no sense of, I don't know, any respect for your respective office. Because if you did, and if you cared about this government, if you cared about the people that you're supposed to be having power over, you would not be acting this way. You just wouldn't. Like a bare minimum. Hey, Republicans, bare minimum. Do you miss having a respectable government? Hey, maybe we should have new people representing us, especially because they're actually not doing a lot of great things out there. Like I don't understand the basis for support for any of these people still. But yeah, okay, so back to the video. Let me fast forward. We're gonna go through. Hold on. No, it's fine.
Okay, got it.
Remember when Joe Biden said that he needed Congress to pass legislation to help close the border? He was always blaming Congress and everyone else. As it turned out, we didn't need legislation. We just needed a new president.
Okay, we're going to pause there. So just a friendly reminder to everybody. We were supposed to have 3 branches of government, right? So let's do a quick U.S. government lesson. There are 3 branches, right? As we're seeing here from the government website. There's a legislative, executive, and judicial. These are all supposed to...
I'm taking notes. If you can't see me, I'm taking notes. She's so good.
These are all supposed to have a check on each other. So no one branch has complete control over our government. That is called checks and balances. You might remember that from high school. The legislative refers to Congress, which is made up of the House of Representatives and the Senate. Executive refers to the president and his cabinet. And the judicial refers to the Supreme Court of the United States and other federal courts. So I know some people may have forgotten with the way this year has gone, but technically the legislative branch, i.e. Congress, is in charge of drafting laws, not the president. So when you make a comment saying you don't need to go through Congress to pass legislation, I don't know, in my opinion, it's sounding a little dictatory.
No, it's dictatory. He puts a dick in dictator.
Well, there you go. Dictatory.
Very Freudian slip.
Yeah. It's sounding a little like I have total control over the government. Like, yes, he can use executive orders for actual emergencies. And I'm assuming that that's what he's trying to hint at. Oh, I use an executive order and I got stuff done.
Yeah.
And if we were in normal times where there would be a normal check and balance system in the 3 branches of government, then Congress would have called out his malicious use of executive orders this year. But of course, since unfortunately there is a Republican majority in Congress, they haven't had the numbers or the amount of votes to call him out on his BS and hold him accountable. Again, voting matters. Voting for your Congress people matters. Voting for local election matters. This is why if you've always been like, it doesn't matter, look around. Clearly it matters.
Go campaign for somebody who's primarying someone that you like. Do you know what I mean? Like, go out there and get involved in any way this election more than ever. Yo, last election, I was like, if he wins, there's not going to be any more free and fair elections. I'll be real with y'all. I think the midterm is going to be that. If Democrats cannot get it together and win back the House and the Senate, that's it.
Well,
I'm sorry.
In my opinion, and I'm calling it now, I don't think we're getting to the midterms. I'm going to bring it up later, but we just strike Syria yesterday. We're out here bombing stuff left and right, even though he claims that he's ending all these wars.
Let's keep going on.
I just don't think that's going to happen.
Wow.
So going back to the video, he's gonna start talking as soon as I add this. Hold up. Let me go to 3 minutes and 50. 3:45. Okay.
To best. We're deporting criminals, restoring safety to our most dangerous cities. Just take a look at Washington, D.C. It's at levels of safety that we've never seen before. And they decimated the bloodthirsty foreign drug cartels. We did that.
Okay. I'm just going to pause there. So his subject there is D.C. and by him sending in the National Guard and troops and having troops on the ground, that supposedly helped D.C.'s crime rate. Let's see if that's true. So pulling up data from the Metropolitan Police in Washington, D.C. The source from the Metro Police is entitled 2025 Year-to-Date Crime Comparison. This is dated as of December 19, 2025. So if we look through, just scrolling down, the 2024 to 2025 numbers already showed a drop in overall crime of 17%. They have the breakdown here of the type of crime, but crime was already going down, right? Before he came into play. Then if we go even further back, the 2023 to 2024 numbers had already shown that crime was on the way down with an overall crime rate drop of 15%. So meaning that Trump's Nazis going into DC and rounding people up only helped drop crime by an additional 2% by Metro DC's stats, which suggests that they weren't actually targeting criminals with all those troops on the ground. And that's why, and that's all they were able to actually do, right? Just it was an intimidation tactic. Because again, if you were actually targeting criminals, if you weren't just putting on a show, why is it only a 2% drop?
Right.
You would have thought that there was no crime anywhere at all. Clearly, crime was still able to happen. Clearly, you guys haven't been doing that great of a job.
And also clean up the park a little better. I saw some trash out there too.
Exactly. Clean up, help people cross the street. Just, you know.
Yo, if I saw a National Guard picking up garbage, I would be like, you missed the spot.
Well, that's what people were doing to them. They were telling them like, aren't you embarrassed? I'm sure I can only imagine being a service member right now and how heartbreaking that is. Like, I've said my personal opinion. I have always supported our troops because they actually believe, a lot of them believe in what they're doing and believe that they are protecting a lot of citizens here, a lot of people in the US. That's what they think they're protecting. Do I support our military and the way our military is used? No, absolutely not. But I support the people that are there putting their, literally they are putting their lives on the line. The reason behind it tends to be malicious and tends to be not what they're being told.
Yeah.
But I personally support the people there.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine if you sign up for the National Guard, you're like, I'm going to protect this country against like,
foreign invaders.
Exactly. Like really high level looking at it. You're going in there to try and be a hero. And that's wonderful. And like, that's more power to you, but you don't even realize the system that you're going into. And that's the sad part.
That's the sad part.
And hopefully a lot of military have been looking around and looking at what's happening and being like, what the hell? Just as a matter of pride, right? Like these are, understandably so, very proud people that have gone through crazy stuff. To then have a joke of a president being like, now you're going to go out and harass people. Yeah, I'm not surprised. That's why if you look at a lot of the National Guard they were standing. They were just like, we don't want to be here. We don't want to be out here being like garbage men. That's not what the hell we trained for. Like, this is insane.
Yeah.
And that's what this year brought us.
And, I guess, the only people I salute to, though, is Black soldiers. Because I feel like they had to join for a very different reason. They have a very different pride for their country than others because they fought literally to make this a democracy. And they're always fighting to try, so Black soldiers, I'll be like, all right, you're the only ones that I'm a little like, I get you. Even Latinos, I'm like, you mother.
Well, again,
that's a personal preference.
Yeah, and it's not. That's why I said this is just my opinion. It's my respect level for
the person.
The person. I respect the people, the troops that are in it. That goes all the way up, right? That goes to the generals and all the people that have been in it, and in their minds, whether they've been brainwashed or not, in their minds, they are doing out there protecting people, and that's incredible.
Yeah.
But the systems behind it, of course not. Like, of course not. Because it's being, weaponized. So just circling back to DC, just a final point here on the homicide rate. The homicide rate was also at the lowest it had been in 5 years in 2024. So again, in terms of how he's, trying to frame a lot of what's happening, it's of course misleading or just flat out wrong. And for people who are in favor of living in a police state where unmarked vehicles and unidentified masked men can kidnap people off the street and disappear them simply because it hasn't affected them yet, right? Like you're just like, oh, that's totally fine because you haven't personally had someone get scooped up. Just remember this administration, again, keeps moving the goalpost of who they are targeting. And as you mentioned, right, they're now trying to remove citizenship from U.S. citizens. So looking at a Reuters article entitled Trump administration seeks to ramp up denaturalization of some U.S. citizens, New York Times reports. So and this is dated December 17, 2025. So we actually did a report on this, but just bringing it back for everyone as a reminder, the goalpost keeps moving. So even if, I don't know, you're not a kind human enough to care about others and you're just only care if it affects you, it might sometime soon. Because do you have anyone who was naturalized in your life? Odds are you probably do. Because if you didn't already have someone who had issues with their paperwork, odds are you at least know someone who used to be an immigrant and is now a U.S. citizen through the naturalization process. This is who they're now going to be targeting.
And I just wanted to tell people that it will not end with denaturalizing one person because you understand, let's say, that hypothetically speaking, your parents were naturalized and then you were born and you are a natural born citizen. Cool for you. And you voted for Trumpy now, right? And your parents did it the right way. turns out dad might have revealed the taxes that he made in 2002, and now they denaturalize him. And guess what? Trump isn't going to just stop at mommy and daddy. He's going to be like, how many kids did they have? Technically, those kids do not deserve. I understand that birthright citizenship exists, but it should not exist for undocumented people. So I will strip them of their citizenship. But the Supreme Court has the Constitution and says that, birthright citizenship is in the Constitution. Not for illegals. I say it is, because Trump does not follow any law unless he deems it worthy of himself.
Exactly.
So this is denaturalizing entire families. That's gonna happen.
Yeah,
and call me crazy.
I mean,
I've been crazy for a year.
And that's their aim. Again, we've already seen how he's trying to challenge birthright citizenship, right? Something we've talked about here. Everyone's been talking about it all year. So I just still don't understand how anyone, honestly, can be so comfortable with the actions of this administration, because clearly we're not talking about criminals that are undocumented being in this country. We're talking about everyone that's not white.
We're talking about genocide, guys.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Well,
so that's that soundbite. Now going back to so
ourselves with our people, and we're so proud of it, because and destroy.
Of course. So fast forwarding to 4:15.
And by sea are now down 94%. That we've
sorry. No. Okay, let's go to
destroying our population. Drugs brought in by ocean and by sea are now down 94%.
Okay, so that's the other soundbite. Again, we're going through this.
The drugs.
And you see that I'm skipping some stuff, right? So I'm actually not, but there's already enough here to address a lot of the lies. So let's see where he may be getting this information from. So 94% drop in border crossings. That's what we're looking at. So looking at CBP data of drug seizure events. This is from their actual website that tracks the information. This is drug seizure statistics. So if we're looking at the events statistics, and that events means how many times, like an instance of a drug seizure, right? Drug seizure event. There have actually been less drug seizure events in 2025 with 54.7K than 2024 that had 58.1K, right? So we actually have less drug seizure events this year. But when you organize the data, because again, this was also a little confusing, once you look at the top, it has filters and all that. I'm like, oh, wait, what does this mean? So when you organize the data by drug seizure weight, meaning that, obviously how much these different events in total have weighed, it actually looks like it shows an increase of the amount of drugs seized between 2024 and 2025, with 573K pounds seized in 2024 and to 583K pounds seized in 2025. I bring this all up to say, I don't know where he's getting a drop of 94% of drug cross. Like, what? Once again, we're talking about how to give a statistic like what are you basing this on? Where's the drop of 90? I don't know.
So they've gotten more drugs this year by weight wise,
but
than last year.
Exactly. But he's claiming that because they're getting more, I'm assuming this is where it's coming. That has to be where it comes from, even though the math doesn't make sense. He's claiming, I'm assuming, that because they've had more weighted, like a more quantity, I guess quantity is a better word, more quantity of drugs seized, that somehow equates to a 94% drop of the amount of drugs crossing the border.
Right.
But where are you getting that number from? Where are you getting that figure from? Right. So just being very transparent on the stats. Yes, they were able to seize more drugs by weight, and somehow that means that there was a 94% drop. So again, very misleading at best, if not a blatant lie. And now looking at what I did find interesting is I kept looking into this, and I'm like, if you look at the statistics of the types of drugs being seized, a lot more meth and cocaine have been seized in the past couple of years than, for example, fentanyl, which is like in the top of everyone's tongue when it comes to drugs.
It's not fentanyl, like the children think. It's fentanyl.
But I know I clearly don't do it. Like, the fuck? I clearly don't talk about it a lot.
Yeah, it's just like the Hermes. I couldn't pronounce it because clearly I wasn't affording it.
Yeah, fentanyl. What? Why can't I say it? Fentanyl.
Fentanyl.
Yeah. Okay. What did I say? Fentanyl.
Fentanyl.
Oh.
I think fentanyl is like a children's pediatric medicine.
Oh, se me salió la latina. Okay. So the reason why I bring it up is because it's just why aren't we going after cocaine and meth more? Why aren't we talking about that a lot more? It seems like that's more of what you guys are catching.
That's a Trump party.
Correct. Again, not correct, speculation. Just
speculation, right?
Technically all speculation, but we don't know. So I just wanted to flag that because Trump, of course, has blamed immigrants for supposedly bringing in fentanyl into the US. But of course, that isn't actually true. Wow. So I encourage everyone to read this article we're looking at by the American Immigration Council entitled US Citizens, Not Migrants, Smuggle the Majority of Fentanyl into the United States, dated July 22nd, 2025. So the article clarifies that since the majority of fentanyl is smuggled by people who can enter the US legally, transnational criminal organizations tend to recruit US citizens for smuggling because they can evade detection by posing as normal travelers. So it's literally just circumstantial that it's just by default, right? Like they're not going to get questioned. Odds are they're using white people, right? Because it's just, I'm just traveling. They found that roughly 4 in 5 people apprehended for smuggling fentanyl in the US at the southern border between October 2028 and June 2024 were US citizens. And also looking at this quick fact sheet from the US Sentencing Commission, it also provides that by fiscal year end 2021, right, just being transparent, that's the year dated here, 86.2% of fentanyl traffickers were US citizens. So this is coming from, why do we have this here? This is coming from the US government themselves, right? The statistics. So they're aware. And I'm sure this new administration was very aware before they started spewing lies about it being immigrants. But
they know that white people are the ones who commit crimes in this country. White U.S. citizens commit crimes like this. They just don't get followed. They don't get policed the way that we do. They don't get the same biases right away. You know what I mean? That's why they recruit white people with blonde hair that Border Patrol is like, come right through with a bunch of fentanyl underneath their seat. But meanwhile, a Latino who just has like a crunch bar is getting tackled off to the side.
Exactly. So that's that soundbite. Just listen, y'all. I told you it was going to be ridiculous, but it's fine. You need to hear how he's lying and misleading everybody.
You need to know how he's lying to
and
you.
It's also just because I always want to encourage everyone to think this way. This is the whole concept of our show, critical thinking, asking questions and listening to something and be like, that don't sound right. So here's another section starting at 4 minutes and 25 seconds.
Over those schools is back.
Lord, hold on.
Hands of our great and loving states.
Okay, so 4 points.
Broken the grip of sinister woke radicals in our schools, and control over those schools is back now in the hands of our great and loving states where education belongs. After rebuilding the United States military in my first term, and with the addition we are adding right now, we have sent the cost of...
Sorry. So the premise here is education is going back with the states, right? Suggesting that education wasn't with the states before. So just looking at the 10th Amendment of the Constitution, this is what grants the states the authority over whatever power is not explicitly granted to the federal government or prohibited by the Constitution for the states to have a say in, right? So this is where there's a lot of kind of just default powers that the states get. The Constitution was primarily concerned with the federal government. That's why a lot of states have, I think all states, I've never looked into it, but I'm assuming all states have their own constitutions, right? That govern kind of their specific powers, right? This is also where it's generally understood that each state's education is generally left to the state, right? So now let's look at this article from the National Conference of State Legislators, which, if you didn't know, is bipartisan, and it's comprised of state legislators and legislative staff. And the article is entitled FAQ, the Education Department and the Federal Role in Education, dated March 21st, 2025. Because a lot of the kind of hate that the Department of Education has been getting from MAGA and Republicans and all that, and a lot of the conversation seems to be that, the Department of Education is forcing these different states to do woke stuff, that their curriculum is now woke, which apparently, based on what we've seen this year, means that, we're not including the Bible in language, and we haven't allowed racist rhetoric to exist in the past, but we're allowing it apparently in certain states now. We're not allowing this made-up concept that slavery was a good thing, or we're not allowing it to be whitewashed away, right? Like these are the things that they are worried about and concerned about. and they're blaming the Department of Education on. So I was like, okay, what is the role of the Department of Education? What exactly do they actually do? Because I actually wasn't sure. I know they handle my student loans, but that's about it. So continuing on this article from the National Conference of State Legislators, the Department of Education is responsible for implementing laws that provide education funding to the states and overseeing education-related aspects of civil rights laws. The article then goes on to break down 6 separate categories of responsibilities that the Department of Education manages. And I encourage everyone to read through it because, again, for timing, I didn't want to kind of go into all of that. But they're all of the different responsibilities are focused around distributing education funding to schools and students, including student loans for college and postgrad, and ensuring that schools are abiding by federal civil rights laws, meaning that schools aren't being discriminatory, that they're not allowing any biases to affect, I don't know, a student's grading, a student's experience, that their curriculum isn't outright lying and trying to wash away slavery as if it didn't happen. And a lot of the language that this administration is using as supposedly anti-American is really just factual. Like,
Black history.
right. Even that concept of that's not Black history. It's just US history.
Yeah, history.
It's history.
Yeah, they only want a certain history.
Exactly. And even that, the designation of, oh, this is Latino history. This is just history. And trying to designate it as other is part of the problem. Right? Like, I guess to some extent you have to categorize classes or whatever the hell, but even that in and of itself is problematic, right? Because it makes it seem like the history that we learned in, for example, elementary school, where, the Pilgrims came and had a good old Thanksgiving dinner with the Indians, which we didn't call even Native Americans until later on in life. Like all these different concepts, that's essentially what they're trying to instill and ensure people repeat and get brainwashed into thinking.
Yeah. It's not, the word woke is just knowing the truth, man. Comes from the Black community, just know the truth.
Exactly.
And that's what they don't want you to do, know the truth. That's why they warp that word into mean something that it's not.
So when you hear that the Department of Education is being dismantled, they're saying, oh, it's to leave control to the states. The curriculum, all that stuff has always been with the states. It's just that the Department of Education makes sure that you're not racist or sexist or biased or, violating any civil rights laws. And that's what they really have issue with. Oh, and also the money that's being distributed. Because, of course, we've seen how this administration likes to manipulate people with money or coerce them with, restricting funds or et cetera.
Man, it must be exhausting to be a racist. I got to be honest, because like actively being like that, like I'm saying, we all need to work on our biases and we should not make excuses. But to like actively be a racist, to know so much about the Department of Education, to know that its role is actually stopping you from being racist, it's another level of racism that I just did not know existed. Like I thought they would literally dismantling the Department of Education because it was a body of the government that sort of told states how to sort of lay out a curriculum. No, it's just, hey, stop being racist, stop being sexist, make sure that, your student is not, that you're an actual college, you're not a predatory system or something like that.
That you're not calling yourself a college without being accredited. You have to submit paperwork to be accredited. What
Trump was like sued for, remember Trump University?
Right, exactly. Like
that kind of scams.
Yeah. And the wokeness of it that they're trying to claim that is being influenced by the federal government and Department of Education is, again, just abiding by laws. It's not wokeness, it's oversight. It's ensuring that laws are being followed. That's what's being categorized as being woke. And that's the problem. That people, again, I guarantee you so many people listen to like, oh yeah, the Department of Education is doing this. Didn't look into what the hell is actually they're responsible for.
Yeah, this is yeah.
So I also have this slide included just to give you an idea of the types of laws that they're ensuring that schools are abiding by. And again, it's all civil rights stuff. It's all things that you shouldn't be discriminating against anyone that's disabled. You should ensure disabled people should have the access to education the same way the rest of us do. Like these are the concepts. Again, the scary word of DEI, meanwhile, it's literally diversity, which includes diversity of ethnicity, gender, thought. These are all
disabilities.
These exactly abilities. Just all of these equity, just having a say at stake in like being able to own. All these concepts are not crazy.
I love those. I miss DEI. I miss hanging out with my DEI friends.
But yeah, so that is.
And my concept is just one white guy I like.
That is that soundbite. So we're gonna move on to the next point. I'm telling you, we could have. I was like, this could be 20,000 episodes.
Let's go.
thanks for sticking through with us. We know it's a long one.
It's a long one.
So getting to 4 minutes and 50 seconds of the speech.
Destroyed the Iran nuclear threat and ended the war in Gaza, bringing anywhere in the world, and it's not even close. I've restored American strength, settled 8 wars in 10 months, destroyed the Iran nuclear threat, and ended the war in Gaza, bringing for the first time in 3,000 years peace to the Middle East.
Okay.
A white man did it.
You know, that's always
He
what they
did it.
claim. That is always what they claim. You know, nothing new per usual.
He started the chaos in the Middle East, and now he stopped it too.
So let's look into this. This is another soundbite that he constantly says of, I stopped. First it was 6 wars, and it was 8, and then it's all this stuff, whatever. So let's look at whether or not that's true. Looking at an independent article entitled President of Peace, How Trump's Claim to Have Ended 8 Wars Unraveled. This is dated December 13, 2025. So he, in the past, has listed the peace agreements, supposed peace agreements that exist between Israel and Hamas, Israel and Iran, Pakistan and India. Sorry, I laughed at just Israel being there twice. But
I know, that was like, damn, Israel's out there, you know, doing shit.
You know,
if you've heard.
Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo, Thailand and Cambodia, Armenia and Azerbaijan. No.
Azerbaijan.
Oh, okay, bro.
Only because they've talked about doing so many deals in Azerbaijan that what's her name? The daughter, Ivanka. She's like, we have a new tower here in Azerbaijan. And I'm like, well, if she can say it, I gotta learn.
Azerbaijan. Okay.
Azerbaijan.
Egypt and Ethiopia, and Serbia and Kosovo. These are the different regions that he supposedly has helped end these wars at. But the article goes on to describe how that's basically just not true. So looking at the first group of Cambodia and Thailand, so just last week, border clashes continued with hundreds of thousands of people being displaced and at least 10 people killed, even though there was a peace accord that was signed in October. So there was a peace accord that was signed, but he, of course, is taking credit for that, which was in between these two countries.
Yeah.
But it's not actually at peace. You didn't end anything.
No.
Just last week, there was already people getting killed. What are you talking about?
So now he's going to claim this is the 10th war he stopped. Because if it restarts again, if it restarts again and he stops it again, that counts as 2 wars.
It's girl math.
It's girl math. Trump is using girl math when it comes to wars he stopped. I saw India and Pakistan at a bar and they were starting to be snippy to each other. So I went, hey guys, calm down. Stop the war.
Exactly.
I saw an Egyptian and an Ethiopian guy at a bar fighting.
He was like, oh, I did it. I fixed everything. So moving on to Israel and Gaza. The Independent reminded us that there was an initial ceasefire deal that was made under Biden, actually. But what happened was that Trump didn't do anything to stop Netanyahu's government from continuing to bomb Gaza. So actually, they had a ceasefire last year, or was it was during Biden's administration?
That ceasefire was supposed to be in place to help Kamala sort of be able to get the Gaza issue off the table so she can focus on other things during the campaign. And there was whispers that deal was specifically tanked by Netanyahu to be more favorable for Trump.
Not surprised.
Yeah. So
but
let people suffer for
exactly. Just a reminder that technically there was a ceasefire under Biden first. So Trump did later negotiate help negotiate another ceasefire deal. But as most of us know, the bombings only stopped for a little bit. I think it was like a day or 2 or something, and have since continued. Per this article, in authorities in Gaza, 400 people, including children, have been killed by Israeli gunfire since the last ceasefire was supposed to be in place. So clearly, you didn't end anything there.
Damn, I didn't.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. Now the breath moment.
It's just all heavy.
I'm gonna take a breath. Take a breath with me, people. 400 more people gone.
So continuing on, looking at Serbia and Kosovo. So during Trump's first term, he helped Serbia and Kosovo reach an economic normalization agreement in 2020. And he claimed to have prevented a war from breaking out earlier this year. The agreement did not address the main issue between these two nations. Serbia is refusing to formally recognize Kosovo. So there actually hasn't been anything implemented from that deal, and the political tensions between the two still remain. Because the whole issue, you have to hit the main issue in the agreement. What are we even talking about?
Yeah.
It was basically, again, just for show. in the agreement, they had agreed to again economic terms, business relationships, etc. But the lack of recognizing Kosovo as its own sovereign nation, that's the bigger issue. So just because you have a document that was signed does not mean that you ended anything.
Yeah.
Just, that's how that works. Moving on to a BBC article, because for some reason that article only had a couple of those nations in there. A BBC article entitled, "How Many Wars Has President Trump Really Ended?" dated October 15, 2025. This gives more insight into the other alleged wars. So looking at Israel and Iran. So this picked up when Israel hit Iran on June 13th. The conflict, as we know, quickly ended because Trump, again without congressional approval, carried out a strike against Iranian nuclear sites, which a lot of people have credited to why the conflict ended. But Israel has since suggested that it could strike Iran again since there is no permanent peace agreement in place. It's just that the US kind of chimed in and was like, oh, we'll throw a quick bomb in there to help you settle this. Did that, terrified everyone in the global community.
Yeah.
Because we're not trying to start, again, another world war. And there, Iran was just like terrified, understandably so, with two major world powers like that, and kind of just stopped activity. But this didn't end necessarily. And again, an Israeli official recently came out and was just like, listen, we could do this again if we need to. So you didn't actually end anything. Moving, I think we're just going to leave this up here for now.
Yeah, keep going.
The next one is Pakistan and India. So their conflict has existed for years, but it got worse this year following an attack in Indian-administered Kashmir. After 4 days of strikes, Trump announced a ceasefire on social media and said that they were a result of long nights of talks mediated by the US. So Pakistan did thank Trump, but India clarified that the ceasefire conversations were directly between India and Pakistan through regular means of communication, meaning the US didn't have any say in this.
So
it was actually between them.
Interjecting himself into other people's marriage.
Right.
Typical Trump. This is us figuring it out. And Trump's like, yeah, but I was there with the drinks. So I helped.
So continuing on to Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo, just looking through this split screen here, these two nations have also had long-standing conflict, but things became worse after, quote, the M23 rebel group seized mineral-rich territory in eastern Democratic Republic of Congo earlier in the year. The two countries did sign a peace treaty in June in Washington, but both sides have since claimed that the other has violated the deal. In July, for example, the rebel group killed at least 140 people, including women and children, in eastern DR Congo, according to Human Rights Watch. So they technically did sign something, but they're still going at it. So again, not done, but okay. Moving on, Armenia and go ahead, Azerbaijan. I'll get it eventually. Armenia and Azerbaijan. Look at that. These two nations have also had decades of conflict. So Armenia and Azerbaijan signed a peace deal in August with the White House's help. So yes, this seems to be the most solidified one, but it does include a transportation route between the nations that's supposed to be named after Trump. Next slide, looking at a Guardian article entitled, Azerbaijan and Armenia signed peace deal at White House that creates a, quote, Trump route in region, dated August 9th, 2025. Continuing on to the article, quote, this deal includes an agreement that will create a major transit corridor linking Azerbaijan to its enclave in, no idea, Nakhchivan?
Nakhchivan seems like that, yeah.
With the United States owning development rights to the corridor. It was to be named the Trump route for international peace and prosperity, the White House said.
There it is. His name again on another piece of something in somebody else's country.
Correct. Also, fun enough, go to next slide. Armenia and Azerbaijan also each entered into separate agreements with the US meant to bolster cooperation in energy, technology, and the economy. Because, of course, this administration is not going to do anything out of goodwill or to help just arbitrarily. No, of course not. They're going to get their, teeth into everybody.
Ew.
Yeah. So back to our original article of BBC to finish up with Egypt and Ethiopia. So there was no war there, actually. The two nations have had a long-standing tension over a dam on the Nile River. This is where the tension comes from. Talks on this point stopped on June 29th between the two nations. They still have tensions over the dam, but that's about it. Like, there's still drama and stuff and all that, but like, there's no war. So you couldn't have stopped a war that never existed. But
Well, damn.
yeah.
That's all they're fighting over.
So funny enough, of course, the same guy who was bragging about ending wars that either didn't exist in the first place or he didn't actually end is also just sent strikes to Syria last night, like yesterday. Looking at an NPR article entitled U.S. Launches Strikes in Syria Targeting Islamic State Fighters After American Deaths, dated December 9, 2025. So the administration is claiming that they launched military strikes against Syria targeting alleged ISIS locations in retaliation for an ambush that killed 2 U.S. troops and an American civilian interpreter almost a week ago. So again, just going out to the troops and all that stuff, and I know how, like, listen, if this actually happened, I don't know if it did. I didn't have time to look into this because the strike just happened and I just added this morning. But if this actually happened, then to some extent I get retaliation, right? To some extent. Now, unfortunately, retaliation also tends to look like bombing a lot of innocent people. There are innocent people in Syria. That is just a fact.
Yeah.
So what I find interesting, though, is that he picks and chooses when he cares about troops. He picks and chooses when he cares about military if it benefits a bigger strategic move.
Yeah.
Right? Because, of course, you're now going to make a thing about troops being killed, but you don't care about civilians that were just shot up in your own country just last week because you didn't address that. Right? You don't care. Like, you can't pick and choose and act like you actually care about people and people need to start realizing that this is just an excuse to do things like potentially lead us into war.
Yeah.
So what I'm concerned about and what I was trying to get at earlier is that I don't think we're going to get to the midterms because I have a feeling we may or may not be at war with another country at that point. And in the same way, if you think back to that interview with
Zelensky,
where he realized, oh, if a country is at war, they don't have elections. And he was like, yeah. He goes, oh, interesting. And that has stayed in my mind ever since because the way I saw that man's wheels turning of just like, oh, that's how we avoid midterms. That's how we avoid any future election. Because if this man puts us into war for who knows how long, it's going to get real spicy. So that is that soundbite.
Yeah. I have no notes. I don't know.
No. I wasn't sure if like you needed a breather because we need breathers in between all these. Honestly.
I'm just like, this man really is pushing every single button like a monkey at a computer, hoping to hit something. This guy is gonna hit the nuclear. The guy has the button on his finger on the nuclear button, his greasy finger on that nuclear button. It could slip at any moment. Oops, it was Biden. Biden actually pushed it 2 years ago, but it takes a while.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
So moving on to the other section of the video, starting at 7 minutes and 11 seconds. And we started actually a couple seconds earlier because I'm noticing that's causing a little bit of issues. 7:05. Okay.
Yeah.
Very importantly, there are more people working today than at any time in American history, and 100% of all jobs created since I took office have been in the private sector. Think of that. 100% of all jobs have been in the private sector rather than government, which is the only way to make a country powerful and great.
Okay.
Wrong.
Let's find out if that's true, right? So for those who, again, people just might hear things and not even think twice about it. Oh, we got more jobs. That's great. More jobs equals better economy. But does it? Okay, so do we know what... let's first start with just looking at the government's page, right? So looking at the federal employers page of the Department of Labor website, it says that as the nation's largest employer, the federal government has pledged to model off of effective employment policies and practices, et cetera. I didn't know until you told me that the government was the largest employer in this country. I actually didn't realize that.
Yep.
So for context, meaning that there were no new government jobs because government jobs are considered public sector. So when you hear private sector, that means jobs went to for-profit corporations. And as we've seen this year, especially, and I'm hoping everyone's seen it, that's not necessarily a good thing, right? So in case you don't believe me, Indeed.com, which I think a lot of people use, pretty straightforward, right?
Indeed.
For job stuff, right? So private sector jobs mean jobs for-profit employers. This is just a quick summary from Indeed on types of private sector jobs, but this is by no means a complete list, right? But essentially it means working for a for-profit company. And as we've seen from the CEOs and the Trumpy people and everyone else that's been in the headlines this year, that doesn't mean a good thing, right? That means tied to capitalism, and it's just the nature of how capitalism works. For these companies to make money, they need to exploit people.
Mm-hmm.
And exploitation usually comes to employees, right? So just looking, kind of continuing through. So this increase in the private sector and decrease of jobs in public sector should not be surprising given that the GOP gutted so many federal jobs and agencies, many of which were in charge of overseeing government activity. Looking at a Fortune article entitled "Government Belatedly Reveals Loss of 105,000 Jobs in October as Full Doge Cutbacks Come into View." This is dated December 16, 2025. So in case we all forgot, since so much has happened since then, Doge was basically a failure. They didn't find all the alleged corruption and waste that they were alleging was happening. All they did was just slash things left and right, fire people left and right, and close different agencies and divisions of the government that a lot of which had oversight over a lot of the illegal things that we're seeing this administration do. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So I just want to put it in perspective for everyone that they are cutting jobs or eliminating them entirely
Mm-hmm.
using AI or outsourcing those roles through private contracts with companies. This isn't a good thing, right? This also means that the government protections that apply to federal workers are no longer protecting those employees that lost their jobs because they tend to be doing a lot of similar jobs in private companies. And there's different levels of protection depending on if you work for the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
So just putting in perspective that I don't know if I wasn't able to find a statistic that confirmed, right, that 100% of the jobs created this year were in the private sector. I would venture to guess that that's probably not true.
Yeah.
Because in the same way, how can you possibly quantify every single job in every single state? That, like, you're assuming that everyone's reporting the different jobs that are being created.
I mean, it's also very telling on his part to say that with such confidence, to say the government made 0 jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me? You're supposed to be a job creator.
Correct.
You are actually cutting jobs. Whatever net gain we have in the private sector is being sort of cut off by the public sector, your sector,
Mm-hmm.
not doing the job it's supposed to do and create jobs.
Exactly.
It can't just be you, the ghoul Stephen Miller, the botched lip job Catherine Levitt, and Pete Hegseth drunk on scotch in a circle. It can't just be you guys. That can't be the only jobs.
I feel like that's their dream come true.
JD Vance is on the couch, but you know what he's doing with it.
No, JD Vance is on vacation, like as he has been throughout most of the year.
Anyways.
So that is that soundbite.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So moving on to roughly 9 minutes of the speech. Fast forwarding on my end.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And let's go from roughly 9 minutes and like 20 something seconds.
Big, beautiful bill. Tonight, I am also proud to announce that more than 1,450,000, think of this, 1,450,000 military service members will receive a special, we call Warrior Dividend before Christmas, a Warrior Dividend. In honor of our nation's founding in 1776, we are sending every soldier $1,776. Think of that. And the checks are already on the way. Nobody understood that one until about 30 minutes ago. We made a lot more money than anybody thought because of tariffs, and the bill helped us along. Nobody deserves it more than our military, and I say congratulations to everybody. And
Okay.
He can't say 1 million. Your president can't say a million.
Can't read a million.
Can't read a million. There's 300 million people in this country. He can't even count us all.
Just ridiculous. So this
White
concept,
men and their mediocrity is unreal.
so this concept of a warrior dividend, there's been a good amount of people that have talked about this online already. Fortunately, everyone's getting the word out that it's not what it's being presented as in this speech. So as Trump said, it will be $1,776 payment, supposedly in honor of the year the U.S. was founded. That's why it's $1,776. Trump said this money is coming from tariffs, but that is a lie, right? Like we just heard it. He was like, oh yeah, because of all the money we got from tariffs and all this stuff. He's basically framing this as some special bonus that his administration was able to get for the military, but these payments were actually already pre-allocated. These funds were approved by Congress for housing subsidies, not as like a special, hey, we love you so much, military. This is him trying to frame it again, giving himself a pat on the shoulder for something that he shouldn't be patting himself on the shoulder. And so pulling up an article from the U.S. Department of War, right? This is from the people, right? No longer Department of Defense because God forbid.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
this
is from the U.S. Department of War.
Do you understand how much that just got me?
Yeah.
That how they erase history, that I forgot it was called the Department of Defense?
Oh, yeah. We used to be the Department of Defense earlier this
3
year.
weeks, like 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Okay, got me.
No, it's a Department of War now. So pulling up, again, if you didn't know, our Department of Defense is not Department of War. I wonder what they're getting propped for, but whatever. So the article is titled, Just in Time for Christmas, Nation Gifts Service Members 1,776 Warrior Dividend. This is dated December 10th, 2025. And if you scroll through the article itself says, quote, money to pay for the Warrior Dividend came earlier this year as part of the president's One Big Beautiful Bill. Approximately 1.28 million active duty and 174,000 reserve component military members will receive the dividend as a non-taxable supplement to their regular monthly housing allowance. So he's taking something that was already pre-approved, right? Lying about the source of the funding, claiming that Tariffs had anything to do with it, which they didn't.
No.
Putting his name on the payment, insinuating that he should be credited for it.
As
right?
always, the Trump checks during the pandemic.
Dictatorship all the way. And then framing it as a, quote, dividend payment rather than what it is. It's literally a housing subsidy because the government doesn't pay the military enough so they can afford housing.
Yeah.
That's literally what this means. It's just that people...
A one-time payment, by the way.
Oh, a one-time payment of a whole $1,000. Like, he made it seem like he was giving away like $1 million.
He's making our homeless people... you see a Freudian slip. Our military homeless people. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, unhoused.
Yeah, that's why a lot of the people you see on the streets tend to be former military, unfortunately. So what I also got stuck on is the word dividend. Now, for those that didn't know, the word dividend, just looking at investor.gov, which I, before researching, didn't know that was a thing, but the government has a .gov website for investing and that kind of information. I could have given you a definition, but I'm a fan of just pulling stuff up from sources because dividend is a corporate concept. It's about stocks and ownership in a company. So a dividend is a portion of a company's profit paid to shareholders. Public companies that pay dividends usually do so on a fixed schedule, although they can issue them at any time. Unscheduled dividend payments are known as special dividends or extra dividends, right? So it's basically if you own stock in a company that's traded publicly, i.e. on the New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, whatever, right? And every so often, companies can decide to issue out dividends to their shareholders, people that own a share in the company. That's essentially usually what it is. Sometimes they'll decide, like the text kind of says, right, they can do special dividends for different occasions, or depending on the arrangement of if they have a shareholder agreement, right? And the shareholder agreement includes something along the lines of, oh, if this kind of event happens, you get it, right? Like there's a lot of different arrangements. That's what a dividend, the reference to a dividend is supposed to mean. Why is the government referring to a payment they are making to service members as a dividend? Again, this is just speculation. So in my head, I think the administration is slowly trying to get people used to using this kind of corporate language in a government setting, so everyone doesn't see how slowly the government is being run like a corporate company, which is not what the hell a government's supposed to be run by. Right?
I also don't want... This also gives the impression that our military is up for sale.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. To say, here's a dividend on what we made. Okay, so when you invade Venezuela,
oh yeah,
are you going to give a dividend and a cut of the oil profits to the military that invaded it? So now you're paying the military based on performance during a war.
Well, yes, the scenario you just described is speculation, right?
Speculation.
It could potentially develop into
But when you're starting to use
concepts like
business
dividends,
words in our military,
right?
Bonuses, performance, metrics, KPIs.
Yeah. And that's what it is. Like and again, this is speculation on my part, but in the same way that like a lot of MAGA wanted Trump to run the country as a business, and that's why ironically a lot of people voted for him to do that, which is ridiculous to me. He is actually running it as a terribly run business, right? He doesn't have experts surrounding him. He's not outsourcing to actual people that know what they're doing or trying to better it. No, he's running it in the way that he has run a lot of past businesses, because in case you didn't know, he's actually declared bankruptcy in a lot of different businesses. For some reason, people just don't realize that this man has actually messed up a lot of the businesses that he's been a part of. As you mentioned, Trump University, which wasn't accredited, right? Like there's a lot of different
Trump steak.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So looking at a Washington Post article entitled "The Fact Check: Has Trump declared bankruptcy 4 or 6 times?" So it turns out it was 6 times. So I looked a little bit deeper into this to summarize. These were the bankruptcies. Trump's Taj Mahal in Atlantic City filed for bankruptcy in 1991. Trump Castle in Atlantic City filed in 1982. This actually later became Golden Nugget. I didn't know that. It used to be Trump's Castle. Gross. Trump Plaza Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City filed for bankruptcy in 1992. The Plaza Hotel in New York City, which I didn't even know was Trump related, filed for bankruptcy in 1992. Trump Hotels and Casinos Resorts filed for bankruptcy in 2004. And Trump Entertainment Resorts filed for bankruptcy in 2009. What's hilarious is the article continues and says the reason why there was confusion whether it was 4 or 6 times is because, per Trump's comments to the Washington Post, Trump counted the first 3 bankruptcies as just one. And that's why he was going around saying that he had 4 bankruptcies, not 6. So
Wow. I'm sorry. I need to pause for a moment because I didn't know that so many of his bankruptcies landed within the casino realm. Okay. I need people to understand that it's not that he was a bad businessman. It's that he is a thief. It is more important to call him a bad businessman is not giving him credit to what he did. I looked this up. If you can get a casino going, it's difficult to get it going, but if you can get a casino going, the chances of a casino failing in its lifetime are 2%, lower than restaurants, any other kind of business, right? And the article goes on to say, I wish I had brought this up, I'm sorry, that one of the biggest reasons why a casino fails is theft, bad budgeting, bad management. So for the man to have almost, out of all his things that he's filed for bankruptcy, have been mostly casinos, that is not a bad businessman. That is a thief. That you have to literally be stealing from companies in order for them to go under. And he did it 6 times.
I mean, he's been doing it this year.
Fucking idiots. He is not going to bankrupt this country because he is a bad businessman. He's going to bankrupt this country because he's stealing from it.
Yeah.
That is my soundbite.
Okay. Yeah. So not great. I think a lot of people didn't know that he bankrupt so many businesses. And that is really important to kind of know, because when you think, what has this man been successful in? To your point, it seems like pedophilia and stealing, but but only time will tell, I guess.
But that is the only thing a white man can do. Be a criminal, because he is.
So let's go to roughly 10 minutes and 10 seconds. Yeah, let's start from there in the speech.
Nobody deserves it more than our military, and I say congratulations to everybody. And by the way, we now have record enlistment in our military, and last year we had among the worst recruitment numbers in our military's history. Okay, so that's another stat that loves to throw out, that they have record military recruitment, and they had the lowest numbers last year during Biden's term and all that. So let's look to see if that is true. Looking at a CBS News article entitled "Trump Touts Record-Breaking Military Recruitment, but Numbers Were Rising Before His Re-Election." This is dated May 23rd, 2025. So the numbers had declined because of the pandemic. Like, that's just the nature of, no one was out there out and about. Like, there was just, is what it is, right? So, but if going through...
You're also giving people money for the first time in their lives, so they didn't see a need to go up and recruit.
Exactly.
That's why when you starve people, you push them to do nothing but join the army.
Yeah. So, but for months before Trump took office, right, after the pandemic, the numbers had already been rebounding, right? So we're just looking at some stats here of new military recruits each month, starting from January 2024 all the way through March 2025. And you can see just literally by this chart that the number was already rebounding. And as we continue quoting from the CBS News article, so Trump also claimed that the recruitment was at a record low last year, which was not true. So quoting from the CBS News article, Defense data shows military recruitment began to recover after COVID-era declines in fiscal year 2023 and continued to grow in 2024. That year, 146,473 people signed active duty contracts, about 12,000 more than the previous year. Mr. Trump has further suggested enlistment was at a record low right before news of his election. In fact, 10,993 people enlisted in October 2024, the last full month before Election Day, a 60% increase over the same month in 2023. And when you look at enlistment data year to year, it also shows the same information, right? So it shows the uptick that had been happening. So regardless, I don't doubt that the administration has had a significant uptick in recruitment, right? This year particularly, given that they've been trying to get more people in ICE and just part of their Nazi regime, right? So
Squeezing people out of good jobs.
yeah, but those standards seem to be lower than the military. So I'm not sure if he's including ICE recruitment in that kind of information and in that statistic, but just I like to be petty. It's fine. So pulling up an Atlantic article entitled ICE's Athletically Allergic Recruits.
Athletically allergic.
Because that's
It's
what
my new favorite term.
you'll see where this comes from. Dated October 20th, 2025. Yeah, so clearly the standards have dropped abysmally this year when it comes to troops and law enforcement and who's actually in play. Quoting from the article, more than a third have failed so far, 4 officials told me, impending the agency's plan to hire, train, and deploy 10,000 deportation officers by January. To pass, recruits must do 15 push-ups and 32 sit-ups and run 1.5 miles in 14 minutes. Continuing from the article, quote, the academy standards have already been eased to boost recruitment, the ICE official said. And the new parameters should be the minimum for any officer. He and others, none of whom were authorized to speak with reporters, told me being the author of this article, that agency veterans are concerned about the quality of the new recruits being fast-tracked onto the street to meet Trump's hiring goals. An email from ICE headquarters to the agency's top officials on October 5th lamented that, quote, a considerable amount of athletically allergic candidates, that's where it came from, had been showing up to the academy. They had, quote, misrepresented their physical condition on application forms. The email directed leaders at ICE field offices to conduct preliminary fitness exams with new recruits before sending them to the academy.
Let me tell you something. This is an email from ICE headquarters, right? And ICE recruits, they're disrespecting you, yo. I thought that quote was like from the reporter at the Atlantic. No, that's from an email from ICE saying we're getting athletically allergic candidates. Damn, dude. You gonna let them talk to you like that? Wow. Are they jiggling your fat boobies? They're like, look at you, tubby. And you just, they're like, please give me a job. That's what they doing to you, bro. You sad.
Facts.
Anyways.
And further on that article, sorry, it gets worse. Quoting from the Atlantic article, the Trump administration has slashed the amount of time that new ICE recruits spend at the Federal Enforcement Training Academy in Georgia from roughly 4 months to 8 weeks. Some of the fresh hires have dropped out of the academy after flunking exams on immigration law and Fourth Amendment limits on officers' search authority, one official told me. But the fitness test has been the biggest nemesis to the new recruits. The 1.5 mile run in particular has toppled more trainees than any other requirement, 2 officials said. So other than I'm just continuing to try and be petty because we've seen videos of these ICE agents. A lot of people are able to like run away from them, but whatever. Thankfully.
Oh my God. I saw one video of like new recruits, and I just like I pinpoint one guy in the crowd who looked like a white sickly nerd. And by the way, those used to be like my favorite dudes, you know what I mean? So like if that dude really needs a job, I feel so bad for him. But if that weak white nerd ever came up to me, I just laugh. So what are you doing, dude? Go get an inhaler and get back inside.
Get back inside.
Jesus, they got you out here.
But other than that, I did also want to, the reason why I included this quote is to flag for everyone what we've all kind of been speculating, and I admittedly hadn't researched, that, yeah, they're not really getting proper training.
No.
They dropped it to 8 weeks. That is 2 months to then be sent out to kidnap people. Like there is no proper training, and clearly a lot of them are idiots too because they're flunking exams on the basic laws that you're supposed to follow. The basic laws that candidly we all are abiding by, right? Like these are just basic laws of the US that you're supposed to follow.
You're supposed to be an ICE agent and you don't even know the laws, that you expect people who don't have lawyers and all this to be able to maneuver. You don't know the fucking laws, but you expect other people to.
Exactly.
Stupid ass.
So that is that soundbite. It's all, listen, that's why it took me so long. I started this
Tuesday.
Thursday. Yeah, after
the speech.
Yeah, I was like, oh Lord, this is going to be.
No, it was Wednesday.
No, the speech was Wednesday, but we didn't hear it until the next day.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, 11:29. Okay, so next soundbite.
And no president has ever had the courage or ability to get this done until now. The first of these unprecedented price reductions will be available starting in January through a new website.
Wait. Hold on. I just realized, let's go from here.
Country drugs have only gone up, but now they'll be going down by numbers never conceived possible. It's called Most Favored Nation, and no president has ever had the courage or ability to get this done until now. The first of these unprecedented price reductions will be available starting in January through a new website, trumprx.gov. And these big price cuts will greatly reduce the cost of health care. I'm also taking on the...
Oh, wait. Yeah. So he's talking about a price reduction of prescription drugs. And supposedly, tariffs are going to help bring those prices down.
Okay.
Which, not sure how that's going to happen.
Wait, real quick. Did you hear what I hear?
What?
Did you hear him say like a new website?
Oh, yeah, no, he didn't speak properly throughout a lot of this.
I know, but Epstein files coming out, websites. I'm sorry. Maybe
we're gonna replay it.
Maybe I'm just like.
Let's see. Hold on. Wait. What did I? Oh, okay. Wait.
Has ever had the courage or ability to get this done until now. The first of these unprecedented price reductions will be available starting in January through a new website, trumprx.gov. And these big price.
He said website.
He
had a forwarding slip. He has Epstein in his mind. He's doing all this to distract from Epstein. He goes, these new websites. Damn it, website with all those pictures of me and Epstein.
So I would normally agree, except the man is just dumb. Like he was tripping all over this entire speech. So I don't know.
That sounded like a Freudian slip. The man's freaking.
So let's break this down, right? So he's claiming that tariffs are going to help bring down prices on prescription drugs, and how foreign countries are going to pay for the difference, right? That's his claim. And that these discounts are going to first be available on trumprx.gov. So first of all, he's not providing any data on how tariffs and foreign countries paying for that, whatever, will actually, like how any of this will actually happen. And of course, once again, it's Trump branded, the website that it's going to go on. And just a friendly kind of a piece of advice, not legal advice, because I'm not allowed to just give legal advice like that, but just, friend to friend.
Yeah.
Maybe don't put HIPAA protected information into a Trump branded website. That's just real quick. Maybe don't put your health data into a Trump branded website. Maybe just be conscious of the information, the very private information, the federally protected data privacy information that you may be putting into a Trump website. So just real quick, just be careful.
I need to also remind people that the Nazis also went after people who were disabled, people who had health issues, because they also believed that the Ubermen would not rise with all these sickly people. So I don't trust any of this Trump RX, any of the stuff. RFK has a vendetta against children with autism. I fear for what this man will do with healthcare next.
Exactly.
Once is done with immigrants.
Yep. So just again, be very careful about where you're putting information in. Jesus. But also in terms of these tariffs, which again, if you still believe the lie that U.S. consumers are not going to bear most of the cost of these tariffs, just look it up. But just for the sake of this episode, just pulling up one example in one article that has covered this topic from NBC News entitled "U.S. Consumers Bearing More Than Half the Cost of Tariffs So Far," Goldman Sachs says, dated October 13, 2025. So just in October, the investment banking company Goldman Sachs released a report that explained that U.S. consumers are... Oh, sorry, I just realized I didn't switch. That U.S. consumers are bearing as much as 55% of the cost of Trump's tariffs on international countries and companies. So, what do we think is going to happen if he starts adding in more tariffs to supposedly somehow help prescription drugs? So, if these tariffs come into play, if any tariffs come into play, recognize that we are going to continue to bear the brunt of that. So, just keep that in mind as we see how that point develops, which who knows what the hell it's going to look like. So, fast forwarding to actually, we can continue from here. So, going back to the speech.
Greatly reduce the cost of health care. I'm also taking on the gigantic health insurance companies that have gotten rich on billions of dollars of money that should go directly to the people. The money should go to the people. That's you. So they can buy their own health insurance, which will give far better benefits at much lower costs. It will be far better health insurance.
Okay. So apparently now, out of nowhere, he's going to take on health insurance companies. My guess is this is part of the conversation because of Republicans refusing to extend ACA subsidies. ACA, the Affordable Care Act, health insurance subsidies that fell under the Affordable Care Act that came out during the pandemic. So he is also saying that he's taking them on without giving any information on what that means. What do you mean you're taking them on? Taking them, again, vague language is important, y'all. Like, listen to the word, again, words matter. Listen to the words that he's actually saying. Is he actually making any substantive promises and stuff? No, he likes to throw out numbers of things that he supposedly has done in the past without any reference point of anything, and likes to make vague promises about future things. And then MAGA is just like, oh my God, he's great. So let's just get to some sources. So looking at the CNBC article, it looks like 9 of the largest pharma companies actually have signed deals with Trump to lower drug costs, right? So the summary from the CNBC article provides that several of the largest US and European-based drug makers inked deals with President Donald Trump to voluntarily sell their medications for less, as his administration pushes to link the nation's drug prices to cheaper ones abroad. Pfizer, AstraZeneca, Eli Lilly, and Novo Nordisk have already struck deals with the Trump administration to cut back prices. This is the point that I want everyone to see. In exchange, the companies agreed to a 3-year grace period during which their products won't face Trump's planned pharmaceutical-specific tariffs as long as the drug makers further invest in U.S. manufacturing. Again, in my opinion, a benefit for him because one of his promises was, we're bringing back manufacturing to the U.S. So if you strong arm pharmaceutical companies of either I'm going to tariff your stuff, meaning your stuff is about to get more expensive, meaning by default, you will have to charge your customers more money, and they will obviously go somewhere else to get other generic versions of the drugs that you guys give. Either that or start investing in U.S. manufacturing. I don't know the numbers of either scenario, but I'm going to guess that it might be cheaper to invest in U.S. manufacturing rather than losing customers and also taking the PR hit of, oh, now your stuff is significantly more expensive, etc.
Yeah.
And like in my opinion, this seems to be the main reason why he even thought of doing this. It's a way I can strong arm this industry into producing more in the US. And it's something else that we talked about where US manufacturing isn't actually a good thing. People don't realize that like a lot of manufacturing plants pollute the environment that they're in.
Yeah.
Through air, water, and all.
They're called sacrifice zones.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these things have to be developed in places where they can dump in the water or they can use a lot of water. So look, I understand that Trump is like, I promise manufacturing. I'm bullying people into manufacturing. You're also going to get worse air, sometimes worse water. You know, like these comes with harms to our communities that he does not give a damn about. And you're low in, you know, and I'm talking to white people. You might be a white person in a decent enough neighborhood right now, but he'll put a you know, what is it, a data center, or he'll put a Lilly
manufacturing
plant right in your back neighborhood, and he don't give a damn about you. He will pollute and kill your kids as well. Yeah, listen, he's doing it to a lot of black and brown neighborhoods, but at a certain point, they're gonna run out of space in our neighborhoods, and guess what? They're coming to yours next, because you don't care what happens to us until it happens to you.
Unfortunately. So moving on to this nightmare of a speech.
Insurance. The current Unaffordable Care Act was created to make insurance companies rich. It was bad health care at much too high a cost. And you see that now in the steep increase in premiums being demanded by the Democrats, and they are demanding those increases, and it's their fault. It is not the Republicans' fault. It's the Democrats' fault.
I couldn't wait to get to this part because I knew like you didn't.
Wow, he straight up went, it's your fault. Your fault. You wanted higher premiums. You. Oh my God, Trump. You know what?
He's a child.
You know what? There were people online on his side going, this speech, even by Trump standard, seemed unhinged. Seemed like he lost his cool. Seemed like he's grasping at straws,
literally,
to try to make the last. This is, again, we call this episode Trump's year in review, essentially for himself. And even his own side were like, hey man, these are breadcrumbs. You're trying to throw everything against the wall to see what sticks.
Exactly. So the audacity to claim that Democrats are trying to make premiums higher and all that stuff, and it's all the Democrats' fault and everything else. Meanwhile, your Republicans in the House and in your Senate are not trying to extend Affordable Care Act insurance premium subsidies. Subsidies are going to, they help decrease insurance premiums. That's what Democrats are fighting for. Republicans are fighting against that. So then you're going to claim that your party is in favor of lower insurance premiums and it's the Democrats' fault? How does that even make any kind of sense? And on top of that, your proposal here looking at this Axios article entitled House Passes GOP Health Bill Without Subsidies, dated December 17th, 2025. Your GOP presented a health bill that didn't even include any of those subsidies or address it. The fact that they will be expiring at the end of this year, meaning January 1st and the beginning of next year, there's going to be a lot of people that are either going to have to pay exorbitant insurance premiums or not have insurance coverage, health insurance at all. And God knows the health conditions of all those people. So the bill that Republicans proposed, again, didn't include any subsidies. The Senate is not expected to review the bill, this new bill from the GOP, until after the new year. GOP leaders have argued that extending the enhanced ACA subsidies would be, quote, wasteful spending that benefits, I'm just summarizing, that benefits insurance companies. Meanwhile, we have seen how this administration has been spending money on frivolous things like arbitrarily demolishing parts of the White House, building random ballrooms, decorating things with tacky gold trim, a damn birthday parade. Yet this same...
Oh, right, he had a birthday parade.
But the administration is claiming, oh, this is going to be too expensive if we extend these subsidies. And it's wasteful spending that benefits insurance companies, supposedly, without any basis or explanation on how that's even possible.
Immigrants were taking nothing from you. I just want to you remember all that shit. They're like, oh, we give immigrants a few pennies when they get to this country after they've been hungry and we destroy their countries and we shouldn't be doing that. What immigrants get back to this country is astronomical compared to what this country gives them. Meanwhile, you're here giving Trump all your money so he can throw himself a fucking birthday party instead of giving you health care, and you don't complain a bit. My grandmother was right. White people in this country are masochists.
MAGA in this country are masochists.
MAGA in this country, excuse me.
Because it's not all white people.
We've had to change it. We've had to change it because... we can't be blanketed. We don't want to be blanketed in our community.
Exactly.
But there are the MAGA and the white MAGA that supports them wholeheartedly. Oh my God, they're masochists. Trump hits them and they go, Daddy, hit me one more time. Just admit it. Y'all into S&M and stop all this.
So yeah. So just full circle on the ACA subsidies. So although 4 Republicans did side with Democrats to try and force the vote on extending the ACA subsidies, as reported by NBC News this morning, this was another last minute add-in on my end, Republicans have adjourned until next year with no extension to the ACA subsidies officially. So you can feel free to check out this NBC News article entitled Congress Leaves Town Until 2026 with No Healthcare Deal, Forcing Premium Hikes. And this is dated today, December 20th, 2025, for more info. The article does mention that some Democrats and a couple of the Republicans are hopeful that when everyone comes back, they can maybe try to get agree to something, get something on the books, see if there's a way to retroactively make it effective. But I wouldn't hold my breath, unfortunately. So that is that soundbite. Going back to the speech. All right, guys, it's an I think an 18-minute speech, so we're getting there. Fast forwarding to roughly 12 minutes 43 seconds.
Which is totally controlled by those same insurance companies.
All
They
right,
will
so talk
not
about
be
insurance.
happy, but that's okay with me because you, the people, are finally going to be getting great health care at a lower cost.
Shut up.
Another major focus is the cost of energy. For years, the radical left Democrats exploited the green energy scam as an excuse to funnel many billions of dollars into their own massive slush funds as their energy restrictions drastically drove up prices, and they drove them up at record levels.
Okay. So he talks about the green energy scam, which is another talking point for Republicans. If you haven't heard of it, essentially it's their claim that climate change isn't real. We know climate change is real because we can just look around. For example, the flooding in Washington state, which he also did not address. That literally happened last week, and he did not include acknowledging the damage that had been happening in Washington. And maybe you didn't know that there's been so much damage, but yeah, there's been historic floods there. Looking at a PBS News article, historic floods have washed away homes and stranded families in Washington state, dated December 12th, 2025. So about 78,000 people were ordered to evacuate. That was just from one part of Washington state. Some homes were flooded by up to 15 feet of water, and houses collapsed or were washed away. And yes, there's no one specific reason, but climate change is definitely part of the weather that we've been seeing for the past couple of years. Don't know why that's still even topic of conversation, but here we are. I also love that he's blaming Democrats and conspiracies like the quote green energy scam for the high, electricity charges that we've been seeing kind of across the board, energy charges that we've been seeing, not the literal AI data centers that he explicitly supports and are known to be the reason why energy costs are so high. So just looking at a CNBC article entitled AI data center frenzy is pushing up your electric bill. Here's why. So if you want to learn more about AI data centers and why they're actually increasing your energy bill, in case you didn't know, we had a whole episode about it. Episode 23, How Dangerous is AI, has a whole section about data centers and how not only your electricity bill is being affected, but also your water bill. And if you have it's happening more in certain parts of the country. So if you're like, oh, well, my electricity bill has been the same, this is made up. No, it's specific to the regions that have these AI data centers. So it's not made up just because your energy bill has been the same. Just keep that in mind.
It'll go up eventually.
Exactly.
Because we're borrowing water from each other. We're borrowing electricity from each other. So just because something is happening in Texas does not mean it's not going to affect you in Wyoming.
Exactly. Eventually, we're all interconnected. So you might want to start caring.
It's the circle of technology.
All day.
It brings us closer, but also further apart, ironically.
Maybe happening.
All right.
So going back to the speech, unfortunately.
They're early the new year, and you will see this. In the new year, I will announce some of the most aggressive housing reform plans in American history. A major factor in driving up housing costs was the colossal border invasion. We have never been invaded. This is the worst thing that, frankly, in my opinion, the worst thing that the Biden administration did to our country is the invasion at the border.
Okay. So once again, invasion at the border, let's blame immigrants for everything. Because that's been another talking point that even, unfortunately, I've heard a lot of people repeat. That like, oh, it's because there's all these immigrants that are here, they're taking up all the housing. I know, unfortunately, I heard that a lot, ironically, in New York from people who were themselves immigrants, which was crazy to me. But this was at the time that Texas and I think Florida was sending a lot of the Venezuelan immigrants to New York intentionally out of spite because they were like, oh, you're a sanctuary city, you're a sanctuary, whatever. So here, take them all because this is what you guys love to do out of spite. So just because of literal resources, we all know that New York is already overcrowded just because it's New York. But then you throw all these people who, again, were just trying to literally set up a life and just literally live their lives.
And their plan wasn't to go to New York,
And
one of the most expensive cities in the world, to have to camp out there for months. That was not their plan.
Exactly. So these people were just bussed from one state to another with no say of what was going to happen to them, and then became the villains because of this type of rhetoric.
Yes.
That was being repeated by by other immigrants even, which was
Yes.
crazy to me.
Yeah. Congratulations. You fucked our own community by hating your literally the same thing your parents did.
Exactly. And it's just because you've been so far removed and fortunate enough to not have experienced it yourself. And maybe your parents didn't educate you on their process, which was their failings. But
Yeah. Yeah.
like,
Yeah. You know what, Latino parents, you need to talk to your kids about like the genuine struggle.
or the fact if you didn't struggle, the fact that there was a system in place for you not to struggle.
Yes.
That my guess is, given how TPS, temporary protective status, has been slashed left and right this year, you may not be, if you were in the same situation today, you may not be as safe. Not. So yeah, so sorry, just wanted to go on a quick rant on that. But I just love that I'm being sarcastic, obviously, that he's blaming immigrants for things rather than, I don't know, for example, the literal private equity firms that are buying up housing left and right. So that's why you have representatives like New York Congressman Pat Ryan, who was calling for an investigation into price gouging by private equity firms who are driving up housing costs, like we see in this press release from August 12th, 2024. And so that is one of the major reasons why there isn't enough housing, right? So also looking at this Newsweek article entitled "Trump May Declare National Housing Emergency, but What Is It?" updated on September 3rd, 2025. This article goes on to explain that limited inventory during pandemic home buying craze, when mortgage rates were as low as 2 to 3%, led to a surge in demand and a surge in home prices initially. But even after mortgage rates went up, diminishing the demand for homes to buy, home prices have remained high. Again, not because of immigrants. It was just the circumstances at the time. And if landlords or private equity companies that now maybe saw how that industry was booming and was like, hey, we can get into this industry, are keeping their prices high, that is not because of immigrants.
Yeah, people who come here with nothing but the dollars in their pockets are not the one buying up your homes.
Right. Because
homes are very expensive.
Exactly. If you can't afford it, how could they?
How come we just not call people
or
stupid?
it's the lie that they're like, oh, they get free housing. No, Venezuelans in New York temporarily did, just because we couldn't have people, literally just thousands of people on the street
that were being sent by Texas.
Correct. So they had to give them temporary housing because, again, but it's not they were so lucky to. No. Again, you shouldn't be mad at the people that got a quick, like, helping hand for a hot second, because that went away very quickly too. You should be mad at the system that doesn't help you. You should be asking, if you're like, oh, I'm an immigrant, I've been here forever, why don't I have but they got it. No, don't be mad at them. Be mad at the system. That's what we keep talking about.
Exactly what I tell every Latino who tells me, oh, but a Venezuelan is getting. I'm like, no, they're not, first of all. And why are you more mad at Venezuelan getting $200 than Elon Musk getting $2 billion off his taxes?
Exactly.
That is also us giving him money.
Exactly. And continuing in the Newsweek article, so mortgage rates have also remained high, making it difficult for people to take out mortgages. Current homeowners have also been struggling trying to keep up with rising property taxes. So that's another reason why it's a little harder to own a home, just because everything is really expensive. Exactly. Something else that the article flagged that I actually didn't even think about, that's a little scary, but just figured you guys can be scared with me, is looking at the article. Experts are warning that Trump declaring a housing emergency could be just a way for him to get a bunch of emergency executive powers to use for other purposes. Because what would declaring an emergency actually do, right? Like FEMA, or what's left of it, isn't going to build everyone a house, right? Like what is usually you declare emergency because of flooding, unrest,
it's saying that immigrants are probably taking homes. So this goes back to denaturalizing people. If you're saying, oh, there are people who have become U.S. citizens incorrectly, and they are also people who own homes. So if we can call an emergency saying that illegals have homes, we can make people illegal and then take their homes.
Exactly.
For what purpose? Not to give it to you. More money for them.
Just reading off of the article and the quoted language. From this Newsweek article, Elena Chachko, an assistant professor of law at Berkeley Law School, told Newsweek, quote, a declaration of national emergency or a state of war can trigger the approximately 150 provisions scattered across the U.S. Code that delegate emergency powers to the executive. IEEPA is a prominent example of, and probably the most often used emergency statute. It gives the president a broad suite of economic powers he can invoke in the event of a national emergency that has a substantial foreign element. So, again, speculation by this legal professional, acknowledged, right? But it's going to be real interesting to see how this could potentially develop.
Yeah.
So whenever you hear the housing crisis, whenever you hear migrants being blamed for it, please remember that that is not the case. Just because some migrants got some help a little bit because they were, again, are fleeing for their lives or were shipped off like chattel to a different state or whatever is the reason, does not mean that immigrants are given a house, money, and all that stuff when they get here. Okay. So back to, unfortunately, the speech. At 15 and
tell them we're almost at the home stretch.
Yeah, we're almost
if you're looking at the time of the podcast, you know we're almost at the home stretch.
No, yeah, this is actually the last section. So thanks for bearing with us. It's, unfortunately this man's a demon. So okay, going back to the speech.
Even to be mentioned. For the first time in 50 years, we are now seeing reverse migration as migrants go back home, leaving more housing and more jobs for Americans. In the year before my election, all net creation of jobs was going to foreign migrants. Since I took office, 100% of all net job creation has gone to American-born citizens. 100%.
Pausing there. Okay, so that'll be the last time you have to hear this man on this episode, at least. So he basically said that before his election, net creation of jobs means the difference between job losses and new jobs created means net creation of jobs. We're going to migrants, meaning all the new jobs went to migrants before.
Every single one.
Yeah. So if you were ever hired in 2023, 2022, 2020, that means you probably were a migrant.
Yeah, you were a migrant.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Tommy, you were a migrant.
If you had a new job that was just created, you were a migrant.
You were a migrant.
One point to keep in mind is I don't obviously believe the stat that he just gave, but it is important to note that if there is a new creation of job, meaning it's an entirely new job, immigrants tend to be really big entrepreneurs, as you mentioned to me before, thereby creating their own jobs, creating their own businesses. This is a statistic that is very proven to be true. So that could be part of it. So you're just knocking them because they're literally doing, what is it? The American dream, pulling up your boobstraps and whatever. So doing the thing. Exactly.
Yeah.
So even if there happened to be like quote unquote foreign born people that were part of these new jobs, did you look into whether or not they made it themselves? Probably not.
Yeah.
But regardless, what he's saying isn't true. So let's look at this. Oh, Lord, remove this man. Okay. So looking at this NBC News article, fact-checking Trump, economy, wages, immigration, and more, dated December 18th, 2025. We looked at this article earlier, but we're revisiting. So looking through, as NBC noted, it's actually impossible to tell how many jobs have actually gone to U.S.-born versus foreign-born workers, since these estimates are, quote, based on population projections and samples, not an absolute number. So they correctly flag that just because a person is, quote, foreign-born doesn't mean that they are not U.S. citizens today. So the phrasing itself is misleading. What the article goes on to suggest is that a better metric, because you can tangibly quantify it, which is what statistics are supposed to do, is looking at unemployment data, right? Because you can actually see how many people have lost jobs, right? So during the last 12 months, the unemployment rate among native-born workers, meaning people that were born in the U.S., has actually risen, meaning more U.S., presumably people that were born here, lost their jobs from 3.9 in November 2024 under Biden to 4.3 last month under Trump. During that same time, the unemployment rate among foreign-born workers fell, meaning they got more jobs, from 4.5 in November last year under Biden to 4.4 last month under Trump. To put it in perspective, this is also in the year that foreign-born people are just literally being chased down the street, being scooped up, being scared to go to work, being scared to live their lives. Yet by the government's own metrics, apparently we've actually been having more work out there. So if this doesn't tell you that, I don't know, immigrants are hard workers, Immigrants aren't just coasting by and getting handouts.
We create our own jobs. We create our own system. There is a whole market of undocumented economy, labor, everything that happens that you cannot quantify. You cannot fully quantify our abilities.
Exactly.
And even when you do, we still come out on top.
So, but what I thought was, again, NBC News, I'll see you petty a little bit. They were like, by their own measure, Trump has actually been more helpful for foreign-born workers than native-born workers. Look at that.
Yeah, because when you actually go after a foreign-born workers, quote unquote, you're actually hurting more citizen jobs because one job that they create actually creates more for the community. It's a cyclical thing. And the fact that we will create jobs regardless, but we can't mess with you, white people, or, you know, a lot of US citizens, even when they're our community, you know. So we will hire foreign-born people that we can trust, people we're more aligned with. So yeah, we're not gonna hire you.
Yeah. So I just thought that was an interesting metric because he makes these grand claims with, again, no source, no
In
statistic,
the end,
no
government.
anything.
Yeah, no, that's me. I just wanted to have him up here for a second. Go ahead.
But yeah, it's this. I know this was arduous to kind of go through. Imagine having to research this was not great. But I knew just by hearing it that there were so many either blatant lies or misleading statements that this man was making.
Yeah.
And I hope you all kind of felt the same initially, but even more so after this episode. And it is, ironically, we call this episode, "What Does a Year-End Review Look Like Through Trump's Eyes?" Because that's what his speech felt like.
Yeah.
It felt like the ramblings of a senile old man who was like, "I'm doing a great job. We did all these things. Look at this. Give me a gold star."
And he needs this was for the 30-31% of the nation that still supports him, for him to come out here and continue the brainwashing.
Yep.
You know, he's really upset. He's really freaking out about the Webstein files.
Webstein.
You know?
Yeah, that were released yesterday, Friday, December 19th.
That's what he says. F-sites.
And it was just a bunch of redacted, blacked out pages and lines. And again, we go back to who are y'all protecting? Because you can protect the victims without protecting the pedophiles in those pictures. You can black out the pictures of the victims for sure.
Yeah. I want every single one of them to go away.
Yep.
Damn, even in death, Michael Jackson is still fucking
Yeah,
really
Michael Jackson showed up in a picture. Damn.
In a few.
Crazy.
In a few.
Well,
that's everything for this week. My gosh. Let's do another breath exercise here. Thank you all so much for joining on this week. We had to do that year in review because it was chaotic to watch that speech.
It was crazy.
And we had to show what the hell was happening.
Yeah.
But thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for watching. You may notice if you watch it on YouTube, a lot more camera angles and switching around. We're trying to also in the new year bring in a different style, a different level of professionalism. This was a lot of fun. And please check the links underneath this video for descriptions on how to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, Substack, all the platforms. We need you. We need the community to keep sharing information with us and for us to you. And please do us a favor. If any point in this video there was something that somebody in your life has, talking about any Trump supporters, have said, you know, send them the clip. You know, we encourage you to clip this, edit this, and send it out to people so they can get the right information as well. So, you know, encourage you to do that.
Yep.
Anything else, La Co-Host?
No, that was painful to have to listen to. That's the most I've ever heard him speak, honestly. Because before all this work, I intentionally never heard any of his speeches. They were pointless to me. So, but now, apparently, not everyone feels the same. So I have to flag how pointless these speeches are and how much of a misdirect they are. So.
Absolutely, which is important. This whole 18 minutes was to confuse people and to give sound bites for his sycophants.
Yep.
But that's not us.
That's not us. So thanks for listening, y'all. Thanks for sticking with us. This was a long one because there was a lot of lies and BS to get through. But again, share the content. Make sure to educate your community, people around you with the right facts. And let's see what the new year brings for us.
Hey, listen. Happy holidays, and we'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.
Bye. Bye.